Hello, everybody, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. My name is Brian. I'm here with Allison, and this is Maintaining Frame number 148. All the single ladies hate moms for this one reason, where we're going to be looking at
recent e-drama.
4 videos.
Four.
It's
a marathon.
Videos from 4 different
types of cancer.
People.
Cancer.
Yes, women, who are all having a bit of a reaction to the opinions of other women over a video clip that went viral involving 2 other women discussing family.
It's from your favorite podcast.
Yes, my absolute favorite of all time podcast, CallHerDaddy, which I told you guys like way back when I first discovered it that this was going to be a thing we're going to have to wrestle with frequently, because it is the most popular podcast for women on Spotify. Number 1 with women. I
didn't even know it existed until you graciously informed me of its existence. Thus,
I mean, I wish I didn't know, but yeah. And we're not responding to CallHerDaddy's podcast, but
a little bit,
sort of, but we're going to be responding to the response to the guest that was on CallHerDaddy. The
ever expanding wave of solipsism. Can we say it? That's solipsism. I think that would be
solipsism.
Solipsism. Thank you, Brian.
Solipsism is how you pronounce it. Yeah. Which basically means the world does not exist unless I'm in it. Like I am. It's like
I am the world.
You ever hear of object permanence? Like, why does peekaboo work on babies? Because babies think that when your hands are covering your face, that you disappear. Like, they don't know that it's there. And that's because babies are solipsistic. Like, they only think that their world is the only world. Their emotions, their needs are the only needs. That's why when speaking of babies, this is going to be about babies, featuring babies. But yeah, this is like the way their brains work. And I have noticed that, all I'll say is that solipsism seems to be like an issue that a lot of modern women have today, where this is why the POV meme they don't understand it. They're in the POV meme, which is like an inversion of what it should be. That's why you have that like meme, or it's like, when a man takes a picture of an object versus when a woman takes a picture of an object. And when a woman takes a picture of an object, she's in the picture and she takes up most of it. Like there was a viral photo of a woman who made a painting of Pikachu from Pokemon. And she was like, this is my first attempt at painting a Pikachu. But the picture is of her holding the painting below her gigantic breasts, which like all cleavage out, and she's smiling. She's not showing us the Pikachu. Like that, like, anyway, there's countless examples, but that's what this conversation has become, essentially, because we have a we'll get into the videos, but we're going to be looking at a response to a interview conducted by a famous music person I've never heard of, because I haven't kept track of the music world in a long time, named Chappell Roan. I think that's how you say it. And she was on CallHerDaddy, and she was basically explaining to the host that mothers are miserable, and her evidence of that is her friends who are mothers are miserable because having children is the worst thing, or at least this is what we're supposed to take away from it. And then there was like a reaction from mothers, and this is the reaction to the reaction from the mothers, who they're calling conservative influencers or something, but they're just moms with kids. So I don't know. I guess that's a political thing right now, to be a mother.
The reaction to the reaction to the reaction, and now we're doing a reaction. So it's lots of like it's a Russian doll series of reactions.
Yeah.
So it eventually gets down to us. It eventually filters down to us at the hypothalamus of the human subconscious, collective subconscious. All right. So I think that I was talking to Brian about this. I actually did like a how many pages is this? Like 5 pages of notes on this, which is why I'm wearing my welding goggles instead of my usual orange goggles. Those are the only mildly headachy goggles. These are the ones where I've got a throbbing headache, and it's in part because of these women and having to go through their nest of illogic and self-contradiction, because they do a lot of that. It starts to feel like the point of talking for them is to maintain a particular emotional feeling about something, as opposed to being logical and consistent, which is particularly aggravating for me. So I apologize for the welding goggles, but they are made necessary by the sheer cancer that we shall now discuss. And I suggested to Brian we just start with Hannah Cox and focus on Hannah Cox, because I know this is going to sound really crazy. She is the one that most keeps to the topic and gives the most information about the topic. It's mostly just gathering up all the various thoughts. And yeah, so she actually is the one who is the, can I say the word rational in all of this? I mean, insofar this could be considered reason.
I mean, if you're comparing her to the others, then yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, she, at the very least, she's sort of explaining her opinion on the subject rather than going off on very bizarre tangents. But anyway, she keeps it concise, which could be an element of rationality, if we're being generous. All right, so let's start.
Oh, do you have to do some things first?
Oh, yes, I do. I do have to do the things. We are doing our monthly fundraiser at feedthebadger.com/support. So please help us out if you enjoy this content. If you like these PSAs from the hypothalamus of the human subconscious, feedthebadger.com/support to make sure it keeps coming. And if you want to send us a message at any point throughout the show, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. That's feedthebadger.com/justthetip. And yeah, that's we're pretty, I've sort of arranged it, and I'm hoping that we're going to hit our goal on the current monthly fundraiser. So the next fundraiser that is in the docket is for Brian's new rig. He's been using this one for 6 years now. So he needs
2019, yeah.
So he needs something a little bit more modern to keep him
starting to show its age.
With the running with the doges, the various doge herd in the doge kingdom. Yeah. You know what? Keeping that.
I just want to make sure it can run Crisis. That's like a gamer joke. That's a gamer joke. That's
okay.
I think my phone can run Crisis now, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm not particularly a gamer. I know. I'm actually more of a art and writing nerd. So.
Well, we could say like Photoshop 7. It can run Photoshop 7.
Nothing can run Photoshop 7.
Okay, but anyway, let's get into it. So just jump to the first time code. You want the context from Hannah Cox?
Oh yeah, sure. Let's get the context. Let's just let her do the work for us.
All right.
I've been doing a hell of a lot of work.
You do not want to piss off online. It's mothers. If there's one group of people you do not want to piss off online, it's mothers. But apparently no one told Chappell Roan that in her media training, and as is becoming a bit of the norm for her when it comes to major interviews, she super stepped in it last week. Chappell appeared on the CallHerDaddy podcast where she told host Alex Cooper this.
All of my friends who have kids are in hell. I don't know anyone. I actually don't know anyone who's like happy and has children at this age. I have like a 1-year-old, like 3-year-old, 4 and under, 5 and under. I literally have not met anyone who's happy, anyone who has like light in their eyes, anyone who has slept.
People who have never watched the CallHerDaddy show, people who have never heard of Chappell Roan have seen this clip. It went mega viral, and moms have been taking it uber personally and very in their feelings ever since. But
all right, is there more to this? I mean, is this enough context?
Yeah, I think that's enough context for that part. Let me just open up my notes on this.
I got it right here, 447. So basically, Chappell Roan is a musician. She is I think she's identifies as queer or something.
She wears men's clothing. Which
she basically does the Madonna / Lady Gaga / what was that actress that like basically she's doing the androgynous thing. Okay.
I know who you're
Annie
talking
Lennox,
about. Annie Lennox, but there was an older actress who did it
the
too.
old actress. It's on the tip of my tongue, but like a German woman or something, right? But
Dietrich.
No.
Dietrich.
Yes.
Dietrich.
Marlene Dietrich. Yes.
Yeah.
She essentially, there's always been in the celebrity space, women who are shattering norms and they just put on pants and then everybody acts like the world is on fire. Marlene Dietrich, yeah. And this has been going on for decades and decades, like probably 100 years or longer. But this is the latest version of that. But that's not really what this is about. It's not really about Chappell Roan's like fashion sense, of which is awful. She looks like a circus clown, in my opinion. But it's really her, she's like a queer lesbian musician and she wants to marry a girl at some point. And she was on the CallHerDaddy podcast, essentially saying that people with children are miserable, or at least everyone she knows. This is like anecdotal, but I don't think the statement exists in a vacuum. And mothers on the internet, I guess, saw it and they had words about it. They had thoughts. They had opinions.
Well, right? Because she's looking at it from the outside and they wanted to explain their perspective from the inside, at least some of them. But the other thing I wanted to point out was she said, she did a little bit of a martyrdom thing and said, I don't know if I'll be able to marry my wife in the future.
Yeah. Isn't that one of the
what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Like President Trump, and I know this may not sit well with conservatives, but President Trump was the first president who actually was for gay marriage when he took office, right? The guy is not going to take away your marriage, lady.
No, of course not.
If we have to, and I wouldn't, because I'm part sort of not officially, I guess, part of the LGBTQ plus whatever. But I wouldn't advocate for that. I'd rather people who are queer be in long-term relationships. You have to do that, yeah, it's not going to happen. But anyway, I just wanted to point out that she had that little bit of martyrdom. And then,
I was going to bring that up a little bit later because there's something interesting about that. No, it's okay. That's all right.
All right.
Okay, so
spoilers, guys. Sorry.
That's the context, is that women are I guess they have opinions on this statement because it reeks of anti-natalist sentiment, and they have opinions on that because they themselves have children and they don't like the anti-natalist sentiment. That's like the general, I think, reaction that people have. But let's jump ahead to this first time code. Let's see, it's like right here.
And even then, bias can take effect. So there are plenty of studies out there that say single women who never marry and women who don't have kids are the happiest. And there's also studies out there that say married women are the happiest, or that say moms are the happiest. And guess what? If you dig into who produces these studies, they tend to be organizations that have some kind of bias in you believing that one path is better than the other. But in reality, the only way to actually...
Okay. What are you going to say about that?
You can finish that if you want, because I will go through the actual studies.
Yeah.
That is based on you and your individual needs and desires and wants and your situation. Not having kids is probably the right pathway for a lot of people who don't want to have kids, whereas not having kids for somebody who really desires having kids would make them unhappy. This is...
Okay. Is there anything else?
I'll respond to this because I'm a little bit hesitant because I think the Queer Kiwi makes this a similar point, and I can actually find it.
Ultimately, they all make a similar point. They all say, women who, because I think that when you're dealing, okay, let's first of all, let's be real about this. Okay, Queer Kiwi, and Bryrony Claire are like far left kind of socialist feminists. Manifestelle is basically a socialist feminist as well. She just doesn't make it like political, but her sentiment is in line with that. She's like all about the "it takes a village to raise a child" thing. And Hannah Cox is a libertarian feminist. But like ultimately, they all believe that women, they have to like make the arguments when they're talking about women, they have to be they're walking like a very delicate line, because they have to try not to sound like they're misogynist, because that word is so powerful. So they have to find ways to basically side with, you know, women who don't want children and women who do want children, so that they don't look like a bad guy to either group without taking a side per se. And so they tend to side on, you know, freedom of choice or whatever. And then to measure that, they will cite studies that say women who don't have kids are more happy, or women who do have kids are more happy. Or in the case of Hannah Cox, she's saying, well, there are some studies that'll show this, and there are some studies that'll show that. And rather than just say, you know, maybe happiness is something that we can't really accurately measure. Like, you know, like, well, how do you even determine that? It's all like done by women just giving their opinion on how they feel, and who knows how they feel in the moment. And then we're using this as a data point to make the case for something one way or the other.
I would honestly say that, okay, I can go through the actual studies and what they say, or at least the study and what it says. But to your point, what we're watching is 4 women who are talking about what's best for women.
Yeah.
And how the system can best benefit women. Now, I'll set aside the pure communists, Bryrony.
Yeah.
And
Bryrony.
And Rainbow Sparkles.
Rainbow Shite.
I didn't want to. Okay. I know. I want to go there. I want
Queer
to
Kiwi,
go there.
Rainbow Shite.
Queer Kiwi. So let's set aside. All of these women are talking about what benefits women. Now, the communist women, those two, they're talking about not just benefiting women in terms of their material goods, but benefiting women in terms of their moral beliefs about reality. So we should follow women's beliefs that we can create a system in which everybody gets things based on their needs rather than their merit, how much they contribute to the system. You know, so a merit-based system is you get based on how much you contribute to the system. And then you have kind of an incentive structure that's capitalism, or that's capital, or money is probably a better way of putting it. And that's the incentive structure. So you contribute to the system and you get something out of it. Now, granted, this isn't a perfect system, especially when you involve government. Government can start picking winners and losers, and government always seems to pick big corporations as its winners. So, you know, there is corruption in that system, but the basic element is that you put in, you get something for putting in something into the system. What they want to do is replace that with the system that provides based on people's needs. And that is I remember a while back I watched, what were they called? It's the comic book guys, Nerd Wonder, I think. Or,
Nerdrotic?
Nerdrotic, something like that. But they're big comic-based YouTubers. And the guy said that communism is a fairy tale for girls.
Yes.
And I was like, yes, that is the best way to put it. They want to create a system in which people get based on their needs, but who provides in that system? What is their incentive to provide for that system? If you don't grant people things based on how they benefit, how they provide, like how they contribute to the system, you're not going to end up having much to distribute. Like if you distribute to everyone based on the needs, then what is the incentive for anybody to go out there and get something based on their merit, based on their actions? And you see that this is a very sort of a feminine approach. So the two communists want the resources of society to go to their sort of self-righteous beliefs about how it should be arranged. And I'm not really sure if they would really want to sacrifice for that, but that's sort of where they're going. So in that sense, it's almost, but Hannah Cox, as a way of contrast, is only interested in how things benefit her.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Hannah Cox or Manifestelle?
And Manifestelle. I think Hannah Cox is also that way. She just believes that libertarianism.
Yeah, is the way for her as a woman to get the best life.
Yeah, but it's all four of these are essentially discussing how society can benefit them. It's why they don't really understand motherhood or parenthood at all. They just want.
Yeah, go ahead.
They just want the society to benefit them. Hannah Cox thinks that pure meritocracy benefits her most, probably because she thinks she's a massive boss babe. And Manifestelle thinks that being able to suck as much from a man as possible benefits her most, probably because she is not a boss babe. She's more of a social manipulator. And Bryrony and the Kiwi think that communism is how to get the most from the system. And none of these women stop and say, but what about the system? How do we maintain the system?
Well, Bryrony and Queer Kiwi are both like gays, right? They're both like lesbians. So they don't want men, but they want the benefits of male provision. So they appeal to the system instead, because they don't want, like, I think that, and this is what I believe anyway. I believe that Bryrony and Rainbow Shite they're LARPing as queer because they're more like political lesbians that don't want to deal with men or relationships, like they're antisocial or something. And so instead they advocate for a system, communism, so that they can get provisions from men at the point of a gun, which is the state. So that, because like women generally make appeals to the state. I think that Manifestelle is doing the same thing. She's just like, she hasn't like overtly stated it politically, but she wants male provision without having to give anything back, which is essentially what the lesbian separatists in that we haven't looked at yet, but what they're advocating for is essentially, I want to be treated like a princess, but I don't want a man that I have to actually do anything for. So instead, I'm going to advocate that a state do the job. Big Daddy government is real. They are basically just saying it out loud. While Manifestelle does not say it overtly, but she is probably fine with men figuring out some other way to keep her safe and comfortable and living whatever lifestyle she believes that she deserves without her having to give anything back. Because in all of these women are basically saying, I should not, like, even though they're trying to play the whole, well, if you want to have kids, have kids. If you don't want to have kids, it's okay. But all of them land on the I do not want to have kids. And most importantly, I don't want to be judged for it, but I do expect to be taken care of mentality. So normally, in order for a society to work, you need people that run it. If women are not having kids, then you're not going to have people. Like, that's just what's going to happen. And the people who, and what you are ensuring, by the way, people like Hannah Cox and Manifestelle and those political lesbians, is that you are not going to reproduce, and the people who you hate are going to reproduce, and their kids are going to have those values, most likely. So you're just going to have to deal with more of those people. So you're not really, like, it's a cope. And there's another thing I want to get to a little bit later, but ultimately, I think that whether you're a libertarian feminist, a rad femme, lesbian separatist, or just like a, female dating strategy, like hustle bunny or whatever you want to call it, girl boss, at the end of the day, they're all chasing the same bag, which is men's productivity. And there's one way is that Hannah Cox basically does the whole, like, I'm only going to, give attention to the top men because they're going to have the best chance of providing. And so I'm going to support things like free markets as long as that serves me, while I'm also going to shame men that don't participate at, it's not even men that don't want to participate at all. It's men that don't participate at a sufficient level. Those men deserve to fail and, are scorned. And meanwhile, women who are struggling, well, they need like every advantage possible because they've been oppressed throughout history, which, by the way, Hannah Cox does mention in this video that women have been historically oppressed. So she's just a feminist, like I've been saying since the beginning. Meanwhile, Manifestelle says, well, she wants the same thing. She wants the benefits. And the other two, Bryrony and Rainbow Shite, they're just like, we're communists, so we think the government should do all of this stuff. And by the way, all of that is essentially men doing all this stuff for them. So,
yeah. So to add to that, actually, I lost my train of thought. I apologize,
I'm sorry.
guys. I know it's also the cat. The cat is being very distracting right now. So they don't actually want to invest anything. They don't want to make any effort on their part to maintain the system at all. They don't want to take the jobs that maintain the system. They don't want to have to give birth to the children that will create the future, which is really interesting because if they don't, they're going to have a pretty rough old age. Like if they don't encourage it, they're going to have a pretty rough old age. But let's listen to a bit more of Hannah Cox.
Yeah. So the next.
I'll bring up my rebuttal when we get to I think it was actually Bryrony Claire who talked about EV magazine and all the studies. Yeah. So let's just
make it live on this earth. But nevertheless, it seems as though the targets for this outrage clickbait were hit, and boy, did they respond.
I'm a mom of
okay, I want to stop here. Okay, everybody, pause a moment. She acknowledges that moms were the target of this outrage clickbait, right? So moms were targeted with abuse, essentially. And I just want everybody to remember that she said this, that moms were targeted with abuse by this individual. And I mean, because what else is clickbait rage but an abusive statement, right? That's intended to get your dander up. And of course it is. Like what this woman said was a condemnation of their life choice. And it's a condemnation from a particular viewpoint that everything has to revolve around women's comfort and needs. And women can't extend themselves to sacrifice those things in order to do something that's fulfilling on another level. So essentially, this woman believes that women's level of actualization, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that women's level of actualization maxes out at physical comfort, safety, and socialization. So there's no level above that. There's no self-actualization. There's no the development of an identity through virtues and ethics. It's all just women's comfort, women's safety, and socialization. That's it. Those are the only moral levels that women ever attain. So let's keep going.
Yep. Okay.
My house is chaotic. I haven't had a full night of sleep in years. But you know what? I've never been happier in my life. There is a kind of joy that comes from motherhood that you can't explain to people who only live for the weekend or the next Instagram dopamine hit. Motherhood is messy and exhausting, but it's also full of belly laughs, sleepy snuggles, and tiny little voices saying, I love you. It's honestly the most meaningful thing that I have ever done. The truth is that selfish people don't understand selfless joy. If your definition of happiness is constant validation and zero responsibility, of course kids sounds like a nightmare. But don't project that emptiness onto moms. Don't act like we're in hell just because we've found purpose in something bigger than ourselves. Motherhood isn't hell, it's a blessing. And if that makes you uncomfortable, maybe ask yourself why.
These people are...
Okay. All right. And I also want to point out two things. Hannah Cox recognizes that, again, like what I said, she recognizes that this was targeted abuse targeted at mothers. She also says, oh, it's okay to whatever your lifestyle is, it's fine. But now she's going to take offense over what this mother said. This mother is defending her lifestyle against a targeted attack that Hannah Cox 100% just recognized is a targeted attack. And this is what she has to say.
All right.
Never beating the allegations that they are miserable. Like everything you just said sounds awful. You're like, yeah, my life sucks. I'm kind of in hell, but also I get so much validation from this and so much joy from this. Guess what, sweetie? That's great. Nobody said that you weren't happy. Chappell wasn't talking about you. She specifically said people that she knows in her life, her friends. Like, bitch, do you personally know Chappell Roan? I don't think so. So this isn't about you.
This is dissembling. She was using people in her life to make a larger point about motherhood.
Yeah,
right?
all of a sudden it's like, don't generalize. Meanwhile, moms.
But ironically, Hannah Cox contradicts herself later again, because she says here, oh, she's not making a general point. And then later on, when somebody calls out, what's her name again? The musician, Brian?
Oh, Chappell Roan?
Chappell Roan. When someone calls out Chappell Roan for targeting the people in her life specifically, she says, oh, no, it was just generalization. Well, which is it?
Yeah, right? It is a generalization.
So she just, like I said, it's like there's no logical consistency to this woman's thinking. It's all just, I want to maintain an emotional feeling in the moment. And I think that emotional feeling is validation over my life choices.
Yeah, but the mom did not claim that she wanted to be validated. She literally said that maybe
I'm saying that's Hannah Cox.
Oh, I know, but I'm also pointing that Hannah Cox. Okay, Hannah Cox says that sounds horrible what you're experiencing. That is your opinion of her experience, but her opinion of her own experience is there are periods where it's difficult, but it's worth it. That's what she's saying. It's like, I mean, like, let's take it out of children for a minute. Okay. You own a dog, Allison, and you also have several pets. You take care of your pets, and it's not always fun.
No.
But you love your pets, so it's worth it. I'm not saying children are pets. Don't get me wrong, but I'm saying, like,
I can actually speak more to this. Yeah.
Doing something fulfilling may have a higher value than doing something that is just for your own gratification in the moment. So Hannah Cox is basically saying, I wouldn't want to be a mother. And sure, if you don't want to, that's fine. But this mother is saying, maybe maybe you're missing out, or this is what I think about it as a mom. She's giving you this is my perspective, and Hannah Cox is basically like discrediting that on the basis that she wouldn't like to do that. But that mom is saying something I think is important that I've said on the show many times. Maybe you're not here on this earth to be happy. Maybe you're here to be useful. And maybe if you're not serving something, then you're not going to be happy. Like it's like an inevitability. It's like we're living in a very materialistic time. And, you're talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like what is at the higher end of that is esteem needs, right? Independence,
esteem,
respect,
and
acknowledgement, self-actualization, right? And those things don't come from just doing what you want in the moment. I mean, do whatever you want with your life. I'm not making a judgment on that, but like, Hannah Cox is trying to basically say that she's living her life. She's claiming on one hand that people should be able to choose whatever they want, while simultaneously saying that the way that she chooses is the best way, or at least ideal, or that there's a lot of advantages, and discounts what the woman's saying as her side, and all of this really comes down to women like fighting each other because they feel judged by one another and they feel the need to like speak against it. I think generally men just kind of like, that just washes off their back. Like, okay, this is your opinion to me. I don't give a fuck. Right. So
yeah, I think sometimes, at least from the manosphere community, I see a lot of backbiting like that. But but you're probably right when it comes to men who aren't terminally
generally.
No offense. Yeah, generally. Sorry, my cat is unusually sucky today. Possibly because
just that when Allison talks, the cat thinks she's talking to her until she goes over.
Yeah, but not always quite this much. Like getting in there, just sticking herself in there. She's been throwing things off the table. I don't. If you've been hearing thumps, that's what it's been. I did want because the thing is, getting back to Hannah Cox. Yeah, she wants validation for her lifestyle, but and she just said that these women have been targeted, that these women are responding to rage bait, right? And she said that that any lifestyle is fine. Well, then just accept that this woman is defending her lifestyle against someone who said that she's basically in hell.
I mean, why did you feel the need to make a video about this in the first place if it wasn't?
Why did you need to
try to like move the needle in some direction?
Well, she moves the needle into getting more subs and hits. Really, it's e-drama, right? But I understand that, although I think that she has some genuine beliefs in regards.
Well, she does have that libertarian, like, I'm floating above everybody else thing, which I think a lot of people eat that up because, man, do people love feeling smarter than other people?
Yeah.
Like they love it. So
that's probably why they don't like me.
You're not. Who?
Oh no, the people I argue with on Twitter, they don't like me.
Oh, okay.
Because
right.
Because their opinions are obvious, or their assertions have obvious flaws that can be poked at. But all right, so trying to get back to Hannah Cox here. Oh God, I keep losing my train of thought. Again, I apologize.
You were talking about the woman feeling like she needs to defend her lifestyle because
she's being attacked. And that's the end of it.
Yeah, her lifestyle was being attacked.
And she's calling out, I think she's calling out women who are attacking mothers and saying, well, you look depressed or you look overtired, and that must be, you look like you are a person who's putting their personal self-interest and comfort secondary to something else. Therefore, you must be in hell. And it's like, and she's correctly identifying that people who think that are selfish because they don't understand the upper levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like, again, taking it away from parenthood, there was a book that I read that was about, I guess, Christian charity. In particular, I think it was more general charity, but it just sort of ended up on like Christian charity. And it talked about people finding a calling, or a calling finding them to do something for the benefit of others. And that is actualization, to feel like your presence on this earth is a benefit to someone else besides yourself, right? And to want to feel that. By definition, yeah, there's a self-interest component in it, and it can become toxic when you force people to be helpless in order to continue to feel good about saving them. But for the most part, that is a selfless urge. Insofar as anything that one does on planet Earth could be considered selfish, that is a selfless urge. It is the desire to see your life to be benefit to others, right? And that's what this woman is talking about. And she's saying, if you can't see that putting aside your own personal comfort and your own personal, engaging in sacrifice towards something that's bigger than yourself, which is the perpetuation of the human race and our society by raising the next generation. If you can't see the benefit in that, and you can only see the drawback, then you are a selfish person. And I don't think she's saying this to all single women. She's saying it to the single women who can't see that being a mother has its own value, right? Despite the sacrifice, despite putting yourself second, that being a mother has value in terms of, hey, I've made another life better. Right? So she's 100% right. But Hannah Cox is taking that on as being targeted at her. And that is really interesting because she says, well, why do you feel so targeted by this clickbait rage that I specifically said was targeted at you? And it's like, well, why do you feel targeted, Hannah? She's very specific. That mom is saying this in a specific context. She's talking about women who do not understand that there can be fulfillment even with sacrifice.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that clip, the mother in that, she's very reasonable. Like, she's not saying anything crazy. She's not angry. She's not yelling. She's just saying, like, yes, motherhood is difficult. She didn't make the claim that it's the most difficult job on the planet or anything like that. She probably has a husband who is involved and helps. But it doesn't matter. It's still like, it is work. I mean, that's okay. Like, I'm sorry. Like, what have women done since time immemorial? Since the beginning. Yeah. What have women done since the beginning? Had babies under far worse conditions. Do you think they were complaining all the time? Probably sometimes, yeah. But like, they got through it. It was just like life. It's weird because, like, if you took away all of our technological advances, all of our comforts, everything that we have built across generations, the one thing that will be left that women could do, that the only thing that women do that men can't do, is give birth. And that's the one thing that they're being discouraged from doing. Isn't that weird? It's like the one thing that we're discouraged. Well, a lot of people, I think the CallHerDaddy podcast is likely government funded. And it is intended to radicalize women. That's why Zoomer women are like super like communist socialist in their mindset. And well, I'll get into that a little bit later because there was something.
Yeah, we're definitely going. This is gonna be like a 3-hour video. But okay, I think we should listen to a bit more. But we can move forward to
7:10.
Yes. Are we only at 6:50?
Yeah, I just jumped ahead to the 7:10 time code.
Yeah, let's listen.
Okay.
Nothing about what you just said makes you sound unselfish. If you want to have kids and they bring you joy and they spark light in your life and it's worth all the sacrifice for you, that's great. But that doesn't make you an unselfish person. In fact, it means you reproduced an image of yourself because you love yourself so much you wanted to give yourself that gift.
Wow. I hope Hannah Cox does not have kids. That is insane. Like, imagine thinking that the only reason why you exist is because your mother is so narcissistic that she needed to reproduce so that you could have a mini you. Unless, of course, you do have one of those moms that like put you in pageants and tries to like relive their younger years, you know, through you. But that is some crazy shit to say. Wow. That is I do remember hearing that and going, whoa, Hannah Cox, don't have kids. Like you would probably murder your children with your
I wonder if after saying that Hannah Cox would admit to the amount of mothers, or I don't even want to call them mothers, who murder their children. Who murder their children, or not just smother, but murder, rape, beat, neglect, you know, destroy their children's relationship with their father. I mean, what would she acknowledge that, or would she immediately defend against it?
She'd blame men for that somehow. That'd be men's fault somehow. But yeah, she's trying to invert reality, or at least make the opposite case that like women having children are actually selfish and women not having children are not being selfish. That's what she's trying to do.
Yeah, and these are her genuine opinions. These are her genuine opinions. Like she said, oh, every lifestyle is fine. But she's definitely going to take it personal when this woman is talking about women who don't understand motherhood or the lifestyle choices around motherhood, which is like a kind of charity. It's taking a sense of self-actualization from the development of another human being, right? In the positive, like there is a very negative aspect to motherhood, but in the positive, that's what that is. And she's going to say, no, it's all selfish. And actually, let's just continue because you're right at the next point.
Examine most of the reasons people choose to have kids, they tend to be more on the selfish side of the spectrum, whereas people who don't want kids oftentimes are doing it for very unselfish reasons. I've covered this subject more in depth before.
Oh, you mean like net zero carbon emissions or something like that? Wow,
yeah, that's
almost like they bought into the propaganda. Yeah, and here's the thing too, like Hannah Cox, libertarian feminist, is agreeing with the climate change arguments, which are totally pro-government, like gigantic government, like global government. This woman's not a serious person.
No, she's not. I want to point out, she said, oh, all lifestyles are acceptable. But this woman saying those women who cannot understand, like I'm not a mother, right? But I can understand what she's saying.
No, right? Yeah, I mean, it's pretty like, it's pretty obvious. Like,
and I can understand that she's not directing it at women like me who are not mothers.
No, she's simply explaining that like being a mother is not terrible. That's all she's saying.
Yeah, but there's some judgment there. No, there was some judgment because she said women who don't understand how this sacrifice leads to a fulfilling life, you know, but she's calling out those women. She's not calling out every woman who's chosen a single lifestyle. She's calling out the women who have chosen a child-free lifestyle. She's calling out the women who have chosen a child-free lifestyle that cannot understand that you can sacrifice personal comfort, you know, for something that you find fulfilling, something greater than yourself, right? That you feel is greater than yourself. And yeah, I mean, by Hannah Cox's definition, every single thing we do as human beings is selfish. But let's do a little bit of a gradient. Doing something because you want to feel like your presence on this earth benefits other people is a little bit on closer to selfless than it is to selfish, even though it might be selfish at the end of the day, because you get to feel really good about yourself, presumably, but let's continue.
Yeah, sure. Let's continue.
Before I'll link the video, but it continues to amaze me the self-righteousness so many of these people have and just complete lack of self-awareness when it comes to this conversation. And
as she says something profoundly self-righteous, right? She says, my decision to not have children is the ethical decision. Your decision to have children is selfish. I wonder if she thinks
it's a sacrifice. I am making the sacrifice.
I am making the sacrifice, even though she says women
get off the cross,
children.
Hannah Cox.
Women who have children are in hell. Or she signs off on that. They're miserable. She says, you're not making the case you're not miserable. Yeah, but that's not the case she was making. She's making the case that her physical misery is worth the self-actualization. I think that's what really blows these women's minds. This idea that there's a resource beyond their physical and emotional comfort that they will never access. There's a world beyond their knowing that they will never touch and see, and that these women occupy. These mothers or other women who have sacrificed some aspect of their comfort, emotional or physical, in order to pursue benefiting someone else in the world. Right?
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
And it isn't betraying you for them to generically say, hey, I've noticed that most of the people I know who have kids are not happy. Their lives don't look like how I would want mine to look. It's like women who complain.
Women complaining is the default state, but
yeah,
it's fine. They're generally dissatisfied with everything. That's just the reality. It is.
My mother was like, yeah, I've made a choice and I'm happy with it. It's uncomfortable sometimes, but I feel the joy of raising another life.
Yeah, I mean, without too much of a digression, like this Saturday night was Pascha, the Pascha celebration, which is like Orthodox Easter, and it starts really late, like 11:30 at night, and it goes until like 3 in the morning. And Lindsay and I were there, and everybody that was there, and most of the people who are at church are families with lots of kids, because those people are having kids. And so you have these little ones running around, crying, making, yelling at each other and stuff, like after everything's over, because they fell asleep for most of it. And then they woke up at the end when the food was put out, because the fasting was being broken. So everybody's feasting and we're having all this food and stuff. And there's kids everywhere. And yeah, you have to keep track of them. You have to watch them. The moms and the fathers are chasing them around and making sure they don't, break their heads on something. But you can tell that they love their children to death. And we go on about bear moms and or mama bears, and how activated they get. You should see some of these dads. There's a father at this. He is strapped. He has a fucking gun and a knife. He works for Secret Service or something. He works for the government. I don't ask any questions, but yeah, I mean, the fathers it's a different kind of involved. They're constantly on the lookout, right, with their kids, but they love their children, and it's very rewarding for them. I couldn't explain it because obviously I don't have kids, but I always wanted them. I just can't have them now because of cancer. But it's enviable. I mean, I know that it wouldn't be easy, but I wouldn't try to justify it by saying something like, oh, I'm happier because of XYZ, or I think that my life is better because of I don't know. I just don't get that, and I can see it. I can see that you can be at once exhausted, but also absolutely thrilled. And they are. That's what I see around me every day. Lots of people have kids here. So this is not weird, and I don't know. I think that this sentiment, this anti-family thing, it only comes from women. Men who are like MGTOW, they don't actually advocate against family. I don't see that from Better Bachelor. I don't see that from I mean, maybe there are people out there that are, but I've never seen it. I don't see it from men. I don't see it from MGTOW. I don't see it from, PUAs. I think that generally men are pro-family, pro-marriage, all that. Even if they're red pill guys. I mean, they're not pro-marriage because of the system, but they're pro like people having kids and stuff, right? They want to fix the system at least. So, but anyway.
Okay, well, I had a few things to add to this. First of all, there's a context for her to say this. Somebody pointed out, like there was a woman on this who said, this is why you don't talk to your single female friends, because they betray you by airing your laundry in public. And then, of course, Hannah Cox pivots from saying that, bitch, do you personally know Chappell Roan? I don't think so. This isn't about you. And then she pivots to it isn't about betraying you for them to generically say, hey, I've noticed. So on the one hand, these mothers can't call this out because it's specifically targeted at Chappell Roan's friends. But on the other, it's generic.
Yeah.
When there is the criticism that this is specifically targeted at Roan's friends. So which is it? Is it generic or is it specific? I think it's both. I think she's specifically airing out the dirty laundry of her friend in order to target parents generally. So both criticisms apply. But Hannah Cox is trying to make it so that neither do, because it's general when these parents want to call out Roan for betraying her friend's trust, and it's specific when these parents want to call out Roan for condemning all women or all mothers. So I just wanted to point that out. It's typical Hannah Cox doublethink, wants it both ways.
Yeah. But Roan is using an anecdote to make a generalized statement about.
Yeah, and she's also very specific with it, with the age of their kids. I'm pretty sure that if the friends that she has know exactly who she's talking about. All right, let's go to 10.
Well, there is such a thing as the terrible twos. I jumped ahead to 1052. So
okay, yeah.
Here we go.
When they see something that's hard or strenuous that is unequivocally going to better their lives, pursue it. It's why women are getting degrees at a much higher rate than men, even though that's strenuous and difficult and expensive. And not only are they getting more degrees, they're getting higher degrees. In my own personal life, I've also noticed that it tends to be women who are doing the very hard and strenuous work of breaking generational curses, going to therapy, working on their mental health, fixing bonds within their families. So the situation is not that...
Okay. Actually, no. Actually, let her finish her conclusion.
All right, I'll let her finish.
Women in this generation are afraid of things that are hard or strenuous, or that they think life should be lived like a child at Disneyland. It's that they are only willing to put in hard work and face things that are strenuous when it is going to definitely improve their lives. And again.
Okay. So, first of all, how did women get excluded from that, from women in the generation, or how did mothers get excluded from that? Right. And then also, women only put effort in when it improves their lives, when they get credentials or it improves their income. Yeah, you're not really disproving that woman's observation that if you don't understand self-sacrifice in order to develop or to benefit others, to see yourself in the world in terms of benefiting others, that you are a selfish, see you next.
No, I thought that not having kids is selfless, actually. Getting those degrees, those sweet degrees, and putting yourself 6 figures in debt for an office job that's probably going to be made obsolete by AI is completely selfless. It's doing it for the planet.
She's not even saying that it's selfless, Brian.
No, but she earlier in the video claimed that women who don't have kids are doing something selfless, or at least they believe they do. And now she's going back and saying, well, actually, they're doing all this stuff for themselves. And again, I'm brought back to thinking about, like, why are more women trying to get degrees than make babies? Again, I'm not making a prescription here. I'm just saying, like, what is it that's going through the minds of women that they think it's a better idea to go into debt, like college debt for, 6 figures, to get a job that may become obsolete by AI because women don't want to do jobs that, you know, will be replaced by all kinds of other machines. They want to do the stuff that's easy and cushy, so they get their avocado toast and their lattes before their shift and play, you know, ping pong or whatever. Like, they want the Google job, they want the tech job, they want that nice, comfortable, you know, air conditioned, but not too much job that pays really well. And they want to spend all of their, you know, 20s doing that so they can like hang out with their friends and do the Sex and the City thing on weekends. And the you know, if a woman says, well, actually I prefer to be a mother, they go ham on her. Like, that's kind of what I'm seeing. You know, it's like you can't, it's about, well, go ahead.
Okay, so what we have is Roan starts by saying that mothers look like they're in hell. Mothers explain, or at least the mothers who understand this, explain that no, it's not hell. It is self-sacrifice for the feeling that you are benefiting somebody else in the world besides yourself. And then Hannah says, oh, well, you make these selfish choices to become mothers. And it's actually selfless for me to make the choice not to do that self-sacrifice for the benefit of others, but to say, hey, I'm actually sacrificing for the benefit of others by not having children, not doing this kind of personal self-sacrifice to develop another human being. I'm doing it, you know, net zero this, but also I don't want to do anything in which I have to sacrifice if it doesn't directly benefit my life. If I don't get credentialed at the end. I also want to point out that she's talking about women breaking generational curses, but you're not breaking a generational curse unless you're making another generation.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, you are breaking a generational curse by ending a generation.
By ending
I guess that's one way to do it.
Line.
Yeah, but I mean, like, at the very least, I think that what the mom's responses are is essentially trying to balance out the conversation and saying, look, we hear constantly all of the ways that are all the reasons why young women should not, you know, pair up with men and make babies. This is, and Hannah Cox thinks the opposite is true. She thinks that there's like all kinds of pro-natalist propaganda, and I think it's hilarious.
Oh, we can go through that. We can go through that. But
what? Go ahead.
Okay, if you're
want me to keep going?
Yeah, let's just get to the next one.
I was going to say something, I can't remember. Let's just get
that's fine. Let's bang them out.
All right, 11:40. Well, this is coming up.
And having kids is not definitely going to improve your life. For many people, it would ruin your life. For others, it would be the best thing that ever happened to you. But the need
and the
to
difference,
insist
as that woman identified, is whether or not you actually want to see yourself in terms of benefiting others. It's as simple as that. That's the difference. And when you look at these women and you say, oh God, they're so miserable. They're like, yes, I'm sacrificing my personal comfort in order to bring another life into the world and raise it raise that life in a way that it becomes productive and continues on. I am trying to multiply the happiness in the world by raising a productive, healthy child, right? And that requires self-sacrifice. But I find that personally fulfilling because I see myself. And the other thing is, this is something that occurs this is, I think, the thing that I was trying to get to. Hannah Cox has not faced the fact she's going to die.
Yeah.
If she doesn't want to leave some kind of a legacy, some way of touching people outside of her immediate comfort, she hasn't actually looked death in the face and realized it's coming for me.
Yeah,
but it is, Hannah.
You're right. Well, the thing is, I've noticed that Hannah Cox has been making a lot of like videos about like how, you know, motherhood, like basically kind of like fighting against this so-called stereotype of like women being expected to be mothers. She's been fighting it pretty hard lately, and I'm thinking, are you getting into your 30s and you're starting to like wonder if you made the right decision? And so to sort of justify the life choices you have made, you're making this kind of content that's like, look, man, I'm just doing the libertarian thing, which is like living the best life as a libertarian person, and I'm going to use like, you know, like I'm not going to think, oh, maybe I should have done something different. And I would say there's another thing too, is that, you know, not every woman is fit to be a mother, but I think that a lot of women were a lot more in previous generations than are now. And so you got to ask yourself, why is that? Because I would concede, and I don't think it's hard to say, that probably there was a time where the majority of women could have been, would have been better mothers, or more fitting as mothers, more ready to be mothers, more prepared to be mothers by their own mothers or their extended family or the community or whatever. I know that these things exist, and it wasn't even that long ago, because I remember, my sister was like essentially learning about womanhood from the extended family, from my grandma, from my aunts, and that's gone. Like, I don't think that that's really a thing. At least it's a lot less. So you have to wonder, what is it that changed? How did our culture change so that we have essentially trained women to go against their own, never mind like sort of like a religiously prescribed way of living, like their biology, their biological nature, which is to have kids. Like, we're encouraging them to kill their children and to live single, to be single and party and act like men and try to embody all the things that they imagine men embody and enjoy, even though that's also not true, because men are not the simple creatures that these people make them out to be. And those women find themselves miserable. Like, they're 25, they joke about like how women in the 50s were on like Valium and stuff. But I think more women are medicated today than ever in history. Like, it's worse, like orders of magnitude. So it's like, well, what changed? What is it that you think about the world that has altered your perception so fundamentally? Really boils the noodle.
Yes, it does. I think I have my own opinions, but we probably should. All
right, let's play the rest of this.
Everybody make the same choices as you is very weird. I don't know how you can look around at the world and the number of people who need substances just to cope on a daily basis, or look around at all of the hardships that happen to people through no fault of their own. I don't know how you can seriously look at all of the kids who are abandoned, who are abused, who grow up in broken homes, and say that every single person should be having kids.
Why is that happening though, Hannah Cox? Why? Okay, first of all, the internet has a way of affecting your perception of reality, because we tend to focus on the negative. This is why I don't trust like studies that measure happiness, because if you ask someone to tell you what they're happy about, they generally don't have a lot to say. But if you ask someone what it is they're unhappy about, they have a laundry list of things, because we generally measure our reality by our dissatisfaction. And I think women more so, because they're in a more vulnerable position, so they tend to operate in a negative framework of everything. So, but like, first of all, that's the internet. It does that. But the other thing is, yeah, I agree. There's a lot of people growing up in broken homes, and the families are not really like together, and there's a lot of kids that are messed up and abandoned and murdered and all that. But like, why is that? Like, has that also always been true throughout history? Somehow I don't think so. I think that there was something that changed the dynamics of relationships and family that I don't know if you're ready to go there yet. Figure out for yourself. What's funny is that we're basically like, we're in a world where we're swimming in the problems that feminism made, and there are feminists today complaining about them as though that's just always been the way things are, and they won't acknowledge that it came from their own ideas. This is literally the trans thing. So you guys know, in the UK, the Supreme Court passed a ruling that was like, men are men and women are women now, and and like the trans debate is over and the TERFs won, right? And the thing is that I'm sitting there looking, and I'm like, do you guys realize that it was you that created this problem? and now you're fighting the problem you created. And some people, like Julie Bindel, are blaming it on men. But so like, this is the same thing. Most of this stuff, like with motherhood and singlehood and natalism and all that, it's all stuff made by feminism. And now feminists are talking around it like it's not made by them. And it's like, so when they point out, oh, look at all the damaged children, look at all of the single mother homes, look at all these problems, they just came from nowhere, must be patriarchy. It's literally feminist like legislation that did that. But anyway.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Alice. I know you want to move on because we got a lot of content to cover.
Yes. No, it's okay. I mean, it'll take as long as it takes.
Yeah. All right.
Underneath their skin. There are a lot of people who get pressured into having kids, particularly women. I always think it's so odd when I hear right-wing people saying like feminism has broken women's brains. Feminism convinced them not to have kids. This generation grew up being told not to have kids. Like,
it's actually not Bryrony, the Queer Kiwi, who later on makes a statement on who's being pressured to have kids. She doesn't actually come to any conclusion because it's against her ideology. But there's this brief moment where she recognizes there's a hell of a lot of pressure on men to have kids and not to consider whether or not they want to. But we'll talk about it when we get there. So yeah, let's continue with this. And I can hear everything that's happening. I'm just doing something with a light over there.
All right.
Okay.
You don't know any women if you truly think that's what's happened. That's not what's happened at all. I still felt very pressured, thankfully not by my parents, but by vastly everybody else in my life to have kids. It is pushed and pushed and pushed on women, as I said. And when you choose not to, you get attacked to this day. So to act like the pendulum swung so far over that women are no longer pressured to have kids is ridiculous.
So people in your life were suggesting that maybe, or maybe they didn't pressure you. Maybe they just asked, like, so what are you going to have kids? I know that happens. Usually it's from women asking, but like, if you think about it, again, if you look at, like the culture at large, like movies, television, fiction, our entertainment, our popular culture, our music, it's the opposite of that. It's all about like women's empowerment, girl bossing, career focus. So what if the people in your life are they're aware of that and they're trying to like counter, like, be the counterweight or at least provide the alternate view? Or maybe you've been vocal about not wanting kids and they're like kind of worried that you're going to end up like unhappy and you only got so much time. And so because they care about you, they're like, maybe you should have kids. I don't know. Or I don't know. You're just saying that this is like all you deal with.
Someone in the vertical chat says it's Lanelle Aubrey. I think it's fantastic. You find it personally fulfilling. I think it's horrific that just because you do, you think all women do and should. Not all women make good parents. People, why do you force that person to have children? Nobody's forcing anyone to have anything. But Lanelle Aubrey, one day you're going to be in bed and you are going to know that is the last night of your life, or it's likely that you will be aware that it's one of the last nights of your life. What do you think about your life in that moment? What do you think about what you've done with your life? Right? Think about that, Lanelle Aubrey. You're lying in bed. Your hands are paper thin. You can see all of the veins through them. You know that breathing is becoming very difficult. The weight in your chest is pressing down, and you realize that your life is slipping away. What do you think about in those moments, Aubrey? All right.
Yep.
With that, let's do a little bit more on Hannah Cox.
1334. I think that's the end of that clip. So 1345. I mean, obviously, it's not for everybody, and we're not prescribing anything.
Obviously not. Because neither me nor Brian have kids.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could, but I can't. But I mean, it is what it is.
And I'll talk about
Chappell never actually even said that this was about moms. Moms made it about themselves. She actually said that she didn't know any people who had kids, meaning men and women. But that's where the conversation has gone. Anyways, I think there.
Yeah, probably because men's input doesn't matter when this is all about women anyway. So nobody wants to hear from men anyhow. And she also, because Chappell, whatever her name is, Roan or whatever, the woman who said the thing, she's like a queer person, activist type. So she probably refers to, human beings not without gendering them. So she's just like they, thems, right? So that could be true too. I mean, anyway. Is there anything else you wanted to say? Because you made that a time code or no? So, Chappell, moms made it about themselves. That was 1345. Yeah, so 1547, unless you wanted to say something else.
Yeah. How okay, so again she's talking about how it wasn't a generalized statement. She was just talking about her friends. But elsewhere when someone called Chappell out for talking about her friends, she said it was a generalized statement. It's just more of this inconsistency. It's logical inconsistency. Yeah. So let's keep going.
All right. So 1545 or 47?
How people behave and with ensuring that their organizations can continue, which takes a lot of money. So religious people get pressured. This is just
religious shade that she's throwing. It's typical.
Yeah.
She says she's a religious person.
Yeah, that's usually, well, let's see.
Kids, they tend to fall in line. They tend to be more conservative. Hence, you get more right-wing people having kids than left-wing people. That isn't because the left is like preaching an anti-baby message. It's really not. In fact, I tend to find the left's takes on most of these kinds of issues to be more grounded in the principles of individualism and limited government than the rights are these days. And lastly, of course.
How so?
Yeah. How so?
What? That's crazy. Like, okay, whatever. I get it. I know what Hannah Cox is doing. She's basically like, again, floating above everybody else, but also she's a feminist at the end of the day. So it like libertarianism is just like a word that she added on to separate herself from the crowd. Pretty sure leftists are very, very pro-government. Like that's the one thing that defines them. It's the one thing, their status. That's the defining characteristic of a leftist, whether they're well-intentioned or not. They are statist. Like women are statist. They tend to be statist because they want that, like I said before, that security, that safety, that provision that they would normally get from men from the state, because they have bought into the idea that the state is a guaranteed supporter and provider and protector, whereas men are not. They're a big giant question mark that's scary. And you have feminism to thank for women's fear of men, right? Because the purpose of it is to get them dependent on the state. So anyway, she's out of touch. Yeah, for sure.
You have the mouth breathing man. He says, feminism is something unhappy women invented to sabotage happy women. Like, are you well? Feminism came about because women were oppressed throughout all of history and they finally had enough. And thanks to technology and thanks to Western civilization, they were finally able to organize and throw off the chains of oppression. Feminism.
Well, wait a second.
So the only reason why you have anything is because men gave it to you.
Well,
that's the only reason.
She just admitted that. Thanks to technology, which was in most cases invented by men, and that's even the minimal thing. It was built by men. Like they did all the sacrifices. For example, we wouldn't have a railway without men dying. We wouldn't have a tunnel under the Thames without men dying. We wouldn't have a Hoover Dam without men dying. We wouldn't have skyscrapers without men dying. So everything that made women capable of moving out into the world had the price tag in terms of men's lives. And she's saying that was oppression beforehand. Well, if men were the ones instrumental to ending women's oppression, maybe they didn't intend to oppress women in the past. Maybe that was just a function of biology and the limitations of material culture. Hannah Cox, maybe there's nobody to blame. God forbid. All right.
Yeah,
let's keep going.
That's an amazing claim to make.
Yes,
but women have been oppressed throughout history, and they threw off the shackles of oppression thanks to, and names a bunch of stuff that men made. And then goes on to name all the things. Basically, men. Like, what would you do without men? Seriously, you'd be screwed. Mm-hmm. Okay, but anyway, next, let's go a minute in. 1746. Okay.
To other people. For an example, when I was single, I could look around at happy couples, key being happy, and see that life would be better with a husband. Things that are objectively good that make people happy tend to be sought after. And the fact that more and more people are choosing not to go after having kids should tell you something about the role of parenthood. And I think that there are plenty of really important conversations we could have about what could change or what could transpire to make that role more attractive.
You know what's not talked about is that men aren't complaining. Like, I mean, there's some are complaining on social media, but they don't.
The only thing men are complaining about is not having access to their kids.
Yeah.
And
well,
women
also,
like raping them in a divorce.
Yeah, but also, complaining. Yeah, that, and also not being able to have relationships in the first place, like incels. But there's no official platform for these complaints. Most of these complaints end up, like the people who are making these complaints end up on an FBI watch list. I don't know if you guys have noticed that kind of thing. Like the US government is like, yeah, no, you shouldn't. If you do this, if you make complaints about women, we're going to put you on a watch list. Whereas if women make complaints about men, they can actually do it institutionally. Like they can get a job in an institution that's basically the complaints about men department, right? They can create an entire influencer profession on complaining about men, about the emotional labor that they do with the men in their life, which amounts to having to tell them what to do, having to tell those men what to do. You don't see this with men. They're not complaining to this level. And what I wanted to point out is all of these decisions that these women are making are underwritten by men, including what she was talking about with the oppression, because of technology and the Western social system is doing a lot of heavy lifting there, Hannah. Who put those things into place? For the most part. I mean, women also raised men to have the values that were expressed in the Western social system. So yes, if we want to recognize that women weren't oppressed and society is actually a function in many cases of what they value as women and those values that they instill into their sons and daughters. Yeah, if we want to acknowledge that, that means we have to acknowledge women weren't oppressed in the past. But if we want to say women were oppressed in the past, we're saying that women didn't have a proportionate influence over social systems, which means that men, with their disproportionate influence over the Western social system, created the means by which women could be freed and decided to free them. So either women were oppressed in the past and men chose to give them the means to overcome that so-called oppression. So men did it for them. Men saved them from it. Or women weren't oppressed in the past, and everything that we see in history, and we've seen through in 19th century, 20th, whatever, everything through history is actually not just men, but men and women working together with roughly equivalent influence over the result. So women are oppressed and men saved them, or women aren't oppressed and the women's rights are an expression of men and women working together. Choose one, because it can't be both. All right.
Yeah.
Subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to hit the notification bell while you're there. Ultimately, I think the reason that these people had the kind of reaction that they did to this is that they simply are not happy that what Chappell said hit a sore spot for them and exposed a truth that they have been trying to conceal.
Okay, again.
Who hurt you?
Again.
To the women.
Again, yeah. I bring you back to listen. Okay, so there's plenty of stuff. This is Hannah Cox. This is Hannah Cox. But nevertheless, it seems as though the targets for this outrage clickbait were hit, and boy, did they respond. So moms were targeted, and they responded to being targeted, and they explained what they get out of their lives. And they explained that the people who are targeting them for abuse are probably selfish and don't understand the idea of sacrifice in order to feel like you're building a future, something that'll exist beyond your death, which will come for you, Hannah Cox. No matter how much lip filler and Botox you inject into your face.
Yeah.
All right.
So here's okay, before I play this next clip, this post here, again, contradicts her statement or claim that, you know, women are constantly bombarded but to have babies and not the opposite. But then it says here, there are too many I regret my kids articles, forums, posts, TikToks, YouTube vids, etc. for anyone to get defensive about this. Of course, plenty of parents are genuinely unhappy with their decisions. So like, what's being pushed out here? You know, are you guys aware how much of this could be like straight up propaganda coming out of China? I know that China makes videos. Like there was a lot of like anti-marriage videos where a woman puts a ring on and she starts to, and then like she has this flash of images of her like cooking and cleaning and slaving away while pregnant, and then like gives the ring back. I don't know if you guys saw that video. It's from a couple of years ago. It turned out that came out of like China. Like, and women, they eat that stuff up. It's like they want people to tell them this. Like they want an excuse to be selfish. And for whatever reason, like the internet tells them that. So, and again, people are more likely to complain than anything else. I don't know. It's just crazy because Hannah Cox is claiming the opposite is true.
Unhappy with their decision. And this is one reason that I've always been very outspoken about not wanting kids, because I feel like I have a very strong mind. I've always had a good support system, and I felt brave enough to go out on a limb and speak out in hopes that it would help.
She's got a strong mind, Allison. She's a strong.
Okay, so I think this
strong
is
woman.
She's a strong woman. Yes, I know.
Very strong.
Okay, so I'm just going to double check to make sure that this is the final time code.
This is the last time code, yeah.
All right. Okay, no, let her play it out. Let her play it out.
Okay.
Like there's only a couple more sentences to this time code. So.
Other women, or show them that there are alternative pathways you can pick. But I think
okay, that's the extent of that clip.
All right. So let me give a summation of this situation and Hannah Cox's response to it. So this individual, what is her name again? Chappell Roan.
Chappell Roan, yes.
Chappell Roan. God, I hate it when they do weird spellings. Chappell Roan. Oh, I'm sorry. I've been fiddling with the lights because I got a freaking migraine coming back. Chappell Roan essentially says, she puts mothers on blast. I don't understand why you do that, what you do, or whatever. You look like you're in hell. You look like you're utterly miserable. You know, whatever, right? Hannah Cox recognizes, what does she say again? But nevertheless, it seems as though the targets for this outrage clickbait were hit. So this is intended to be outrageous, right? This is intended to be abusive. It's intended to cause discomfort in its target audience. The target audience responds. The clip that Hannah Cox chooses is a woman who basically says, I am a mother. I make these personal sacrifices because I get a sense of personal fulfillment for, you know, seeing the development of another life, for seeing myself in terms of benefiting another entity or another creature. And people who don't understand that are selfish. Hannah Cox takes that all on and says, you're saying that all single women are selfish. And even though I've said that every lifestyle is fine, I am now going to go on a 20-minute screed that is going to describe moms as being selfish, as myself as being selfless because I am preventing the destruction of the earth by not having a child, even though I apparently think that having a child is misery. So I am sacrificing my misery for the Mother Earth. Give me accolades, right? She's going to call mothers weak-minded. She's going to talk about all of this pressure that she's resisted, guys. She's resisted this tremendous pressure in her life to have children. And incidentally, she said it didn't come from her parents. So where the hell did it come from? Did it come from her partner? I think that we would hear more about it if we did. Did it come from her friends? I don't think it came from, like, are you going to have children? That's not pressure, right? So where is this pressure really coming from? I think it's coming from her own self-conscious conflict. And women do this all the time, from what I see. Something internal is conflicting inside them and they project it on the external. But she's going to reframe this as, no, I've got a stronger mind than mothers. Mothers are just weak-willed. And I didn't, and they're also religiously brainwashed. right? So she's going to go through step by step by step how she is superior to mothers in response to a mother simply saying, anyone who doesn't understand this is a selfish person, which is 100% right. She wasn't saying every single woman or every woman without children is selfish. She's saying those who do not understand self-sacrifice in order to benefit another entity that is not you, it can be a source of fulfillment, are terminally selfish, right? And that's fine if you want to be that way, but obviously Hannah Cox doesn't like it because this is an entire screed against that. And did I sum this up properly?
Yeah.
And also there's some typical Hannah Cox self-contradiction. Apparently Chappell Roan was specifically targeting her friend when she's defending against these mothers saying that Chappell Roan were targeting all mothers, but not specifically targeting her friend when she's defending against Chappell Roan actually betraying her friend by throwing her public laundry into the spotlight, right? So we got some nice contradictions in there, the typical, the patented Hannah Cox, I don't know my own mind contradictions, and also the complete lack of understanding that, yeah, you're going to die. How do you deal with that? Right? These women recognize that, and maybe they are producing the next generation, and that's not a bad thing because Hannah Cox, you're going to need somebody to clean the sewers when you're pooping in diapers, like,
yeah.
But the other thing is I did want to speak to what you said about pets. I understand what this woman is talking about, right? Maybe I didn't understand it like, I don't know, 5 years ago, but I understand it. And I know that having a puppy isn't the same as a kid, but when I had my pup, when we got our Scipio, who's like a full grown German Shepherd now, he was a very small little puppy. And like all puppies, he took a dump everywhere, right? And so 4 or 5 times a day, I would be picking up shit and depositing it in the toilet and flushing it, right? Because he couldn't help himself, or cleaning up pee. But what was interesting to me, and this is something that really surprised me because I was worried about getting a puppy. I was like, oh God, it's going to be such a pain in the ass. All the crap you're going to have to do to take care of it. It's going to just be like, it's going to consume your life. What astounded me is after you bond with this little life, and puppies, I've read, actually give off some of the similar pheromones as like babies. It isn't. You don't feel resentment. Yeah, you're exhausted and it's disgusting. And it's an imposition on your personal, hygiene and comfort, but you don't feel resentment because you're taking care of something that relies on you. And there's an amazing feeling in that. There is a satisfaction that, yeah, I don't think Hannah Cox knows. And I think that if any of those women who were calling out those mothers for looking exhausted and miserable actually had that experience, and it's not even with the kid, it's with the puppy, right? If you had that experience, you'd understand it. So she's absolutely right. When you have that experience of taking care of something that's wholly reliant on you, is absolutely vulnerable to you, often you don't feel resentment in taking care of it. It almost feels like it was really weird. It felt like it wasn't at all an imposition. I don't know how to describe it.
No, that's right. Have you ever seen those videos? And they're all over the internet. Lindsay loves these videos. They're like, a man, usually it's a man finds like a stray animal in dire need and rescues them, and then takes it to a vet, or they go somewhere and they nurse it all the way back to health, and they show you the process. Like there was one we watched yesterday of a coyote that was caught in a trap, and this guy gets the coyote out, and it's got an injured knee or leg or whatever, and he takes it to the vet, and they show the whole process of him healing it, and then he takes it home and he trains it and, takes care of it and feeds it, and they show you all of that. And he's obviously got other animals. So they show, clips of the coyote playing with his dog and stuff. Mm-hmm. And then it's like fully grown and like lives with him. And that's, So like, yeah, all of that was a lot of work. All of that was a lot of, you know, probably late days, and all of it was it wasn't like his job. Like, I guess he happened to, like, you know, decide to record it, like make a record of it on video, but it's not like he was doing it for money. It's not like a career he's chasing. It was just like, I want to help this. And it could be anything. Like there are videos of, like, you know, there was a video of a shark that ended up on a beach, and this group of dudes, they all put the shark back out in the ocean. Like, it was like a great white or a nurse shark or something. And they basically all worked together to put it back out there. Now, you know, you could say that those are just men W's, but they are doing something they don't have to do because they think it's the right thing, and there's a sense of fulfillment in doing it. And I think raising a child is the highest of those things.
Yes.
Right? So, you know.
Yeah, it's like raising a working line German Shepherd was an incredibly intensive experience. And you have to challenge a lot of the indulgences you have. I know it sounds really weird, and I'm not comparing it to having a kid, but you know, you have to learn to be emotionally stable. You know, you have to learn to you have to learn to make space for their needs and do it every day. You know, and one of the things is that, you know, sort of tragic is that, you know, I'm going to have to say goodbye to him. And that really bugs me, you know, and that's
he's already 9 years old, and it's inevitable. I mean, you outlive your pets by a lot. So
yeah, and the thing is, the one thing I really, really envy mothers and fathers is that for the most part, they don't have to say goodbye to their kids. You know, they get to go through this process and know what they're creating goes on and lives on beyond them. You know, and I don't think that these women have ever even thought in those terms. Have ever even considered the world in those terms. What we're looking at is a generation of women who have never come to terms with the fact that they're going to die. Nor do they even think. Like, they are so up their own asses about rejecting. And often I find that being a lesbian is less about loving women and more about rejecting men. They're so up their ass about rejecting men and rejecting family and rejecting blah, 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 that they don't even think about how hard it is to say goodbye to something. All right, let's
move on to Manifestelle. Okay, so same video, different take. So, well, not really, but different person, I guess.
My notions. Okay, it's this one.
All of my friends who have kids are in hell. I don't know anyone. I actually don't know anyone who's like happy and has children at this age. I have like a 1-year-old, like 3-year-old, 4 and under, 5 and under. I literally have not met anyone who's happy, anyone who has like light in their eyes, anyone who has slept.
Oh, so we're watching this. Okay, let's see Manifestelle's response. Oh, good Lord.
All right. So Manifestelle, let me go to 702. This was the Chappell Roan clip where she basically, this is the one everybody's reacting to. And I noticed that it was going out on like shorts, and that's how I came across it. But I didn't think it was going to create this much of a stink. I knew what it was. I knew it was like anti-natalist propaganda because, again, consider who is the audience for CallHerDaddy. Why did they take a 20-second clip from a 1 hour plus podcast and then make that into a short and then put that out on the internet, boosted by YouTube's algorithm? Like, why would you do that? It's a thing to think about.
With Chappell as a pregnant woman.
Raise your hand if you...
Oh, and I'm sorry if so Manifestelle records at a much lower volume than everybody else, so she's going to be hard to hear compared to the others.
Do you want to just turn it up a bit?
I can't. It's maxed out here. I mean,
okay.
I could turn it up on the website, like in OBS, but I don't know if it's going to be that much. Here we go.
You agree with Chappell Roan and you're tired of mothers telling childless women what to think and to just not think about it and have a kid because it's the best decision they'll ever make. They are the reason why women are not getting the help and support that they need. Obviously, men are to blame.
Yeah. You didn't hear this clip? Obviously, men are to blame. So
no,
women
I did.
Women are not having kids because they're not getting the support that they need. So ultimately,
no, actually, you got the causality reversed. She's saying that women, mothers telling childless women to have children is the best decision they'll make. They're the reason why women are not getting the help and support that they need. Obviously, men are to blame.
Yeah, but women will not have children if they aren't getting the support that they need. And she's saying,
no, you've got it reversed. She's saying they're having children and not getting the support that they need. So
that's what I'm saying.
She's blaming the mothers for
she's
saying,
blaming the women having children,
but also men. But
obviously men, yes. But
so
ultimately,
essentially, women are mothers are the ones that are pushing these childless women into shark-infested waters. But of course, men are the sharks.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's because women are not getting the support they need. Like that, like that's okay. But anyway.
Don't even get me started on that, of course. But it is also women that, once again, are telling these childless women, especially ones that are on the fence about it, it's totally fine. And this is coming from someone that is pregnant, by the way. Super damaging. And let's not. It's 2025. Everyone's different. Let's stop shaming women.
Nobody's shaming them. Like, once again, I have to go back to the fact that this was a childless woman, child-free woman, whatever, who was saying that her female friends were miserable. And then the moms clapped back with, you don't understand. Yeah, maybe we're tired. Maybe we are sacrificing our comfort, but we're doing so because we get something from it. Right? You don't understand. Like I said about taking care of my puppy. It wasn't, I was tired. It was uncomfortable. It's not fun, but it wasn't actually that bad. And what I got out of it was to see a little creature grow and become, a very good dog.
Well, anything that you care about, you have to do stuff for. Like, I was just thinking, like, do you have plants in your home? Do you have to water them and give them sunlight and prune them? Do you have a garden? Do you paint the walls in your apartment? Well, obviously not. These women's apartments are all just white. They probably just left whatever the super cheap paint that the building puts up, and they just left it. Because if you wanted to like make it a home, you'd actually have to like do some work, like decorate and paint and keep it up. Like, do you not wash your clothes? Do you not take out your trash? Like, these are all things that we do even before we consider taking care of something that's alive, whether that's an aquarium or plant life or pets or children or a mate. I mean, obviously Manifestelle doesn't want to do any of those things, because that's been all of her content is that men are labor and men are risks. So this obviously could extend to children, especially little boys. Those are like little miniature labor and risk generators.
And by saying that men are labor and men are risk, she denies the necessity of putting any effort on her part into any relationship. So if a man comes into her life, not only should he benefit, his companionship is irrelevant. When a man comes into her life, he should essentially just, walk into her life, start breathing for her, start shitting for her, start eating for her, start moving for her, start thinking for her, start doing start metabolizing for her. Like he should be he should be doing the ATP pathway for her. Everything, every aspect of her existence should be done for her by a man. He should function as her complete life support system. And if she has to do anything for herself in the presence of a man, anything, then that's his failure.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, next time code 1033.
For one, fathers can be held more accountable for their role as fathers and husbands in the family. Because here's my hot take. Like, the reason why the dating stage and even early marriage stage is so important is this notion that it doesn't get better. Okay, it cannot get better from that. Like, usually, although relationships do get better over time because then you get to know each other better and blah blah blah, but like, in a sense, like, if your partner isn't stepping up now, they are not going to step up more later.
Sometimes when I listen to her yap, I get the impression of like a blind person who has never left their house trying to describe an African safari. Never watched any like and can't watch TV. It's like you're just describing something that you have no knowledge of. Incel.
Yeah, for sure. Like you're talking what do you mean fathers can be held more accountable for their roles as fathers? Like women are not even letting fathers be fathers.
Well, yeah, but like, also men do 4 hours more according to the Pew Research in a week.
Sure.
Like men are pulling more than their weight already. How much more do you want from them? Like the problem is that in restructuring society so that women could work, it ended up increasing men and women's workload. Well, men's workload by like 10 hours and women's workload by 8 or something.
Yeah, and they're taking home less money.
And you're taking home less money. And you asked for this. You asked for this complete restructuring so that, which is really funny because in the 19th century, women went from a 75% workforce participation to 10%, and they were lauding it in their diaries. Like women wanted that. And then we reversed that, and now you're all complaining about it because you added 8 hours a week onto your workload. But that wasn't because of men. They added 10 in order to pay for this.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it ended up that they do even more work than you. They always did more work than you. In the 50s, men did more work than women. In the 90s, men did more work than women. Now men do more work than women. But because you wanted work outside the home, you ended up having to work 8 hours more than your grandmothers did. And now you're complaining about it. Well, sorry, but you asked for it. And now you're saying, well, men should pick up even more slack. Why do we have to do 8 hours more because of wanting to go work outside the home? Because you did. And men can't take any more. Men can't absorb any more of your requests and demands. And the most absurd now is now men are responsible for your emotional labor, telling men what to do. Like, stop.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, next clip. There's only a couple in this one, I think. So it's like 2 more. But here we go.
Where's the girl with the list conversation? Because motherhood and pregnancy does change women's lives, and sometimes for the worst. There's a lot of health issues involved. There's a rise in DV probability. Did you know that the leading cause of unalivement for women is
let me address these.
When they are
this is incorrect. First of all, you can see from her headline, new national study finds homicide and suicide is the #1 cause of maternal death in the U.S. All right, I'm going to address that right now because I went through the article. I can give this to you, Brian. It's actually in my document that I gave you, but that might be inconvenient.
Is it like the link? Oh yeah, I got it right here. sffm.org. Whatever. Let me just copy and paste it into in here, and we'll put it up on the screen. So, give me a second. Okay, here we go. All right. New national study finds homicide and suicide is the #1 cause of maternal death in the U.S.
Okay, I'm going to break down the numbers. So you can find this. We don't have to give you a link. Just look up the headline, guys. You're not completely helpless here. All right, so I went and crunched the numbers. They found, let me see here. I got to get it myself. Got to get it up myself so I can read it. They found that 2,293 women died of homicide over an 18-year period when they were pregnant. And that's a year. So it starts from conception and it goes to about 42 days after birth. And so 2,293 women died in an 18-year period. 61% of those were due to homicide and 39% were the result of death by suicide. Okay, so that's just laying out what they found. The way that they're presenting this information is very dishonest because they are drawing a distinction between violent deaths by homicide and suicide with medical and probably accidental deaths that are nonviolent, that there's no intent to harm in any of that. They shouldn't, when what they've done is they've compared homicide and suicide lumped together to all other, like medical causes, but medical causes divided by, like, I don't know, heart attacks, thrombosis, bleeding, that kind of thing. So they divide all of the medical causes down to specific medical causes, and presumably accidents is also an element. What they should have done is compared violent causes to nonviolent causes. That would be the honest, because that's the dividing line that's meaningful. So if you're going to divide all of the causes of death, pregnant women in a medical sense, into all these little individual things, that's dishonest. And then find, oh, suicide and homicide is, no. What you're actually finding is that any form of violent death of pregnant women is a minority. It's 11% of the total of deaths during pregnancy. Now, homicide is an even smaller amount of that. That's like maybe 6% or 6.5% is due to homicide. But then not all homicides are intimate partner violence homicides. That's 34% of all homicides generally of women. So now you're down to 780. And incidentally, that 780 isn't all boyfriends and husbands. It's also family members. So pregnant women killed by their mothers, pregnant women killed by their sisters, pregnant women killed by their female friends, pregnant women killed by their female cousins, pregnant women killed by their lesbian partners, pregnant women killed by their daughters, right? So other family members, right? And that 780 deaths due to family violence, not just intimate partner violence, but family violence over 18 years comes out to 43 deaths a year. This is a meaninglessly small number. When you consider that in that time, I believe the US population went from 325 million to something like 450 million. Do you realize how small a number 43 deaths a year is in a population that size? I haven't run the numbers specifically. I have to actually, I think it's like 0.00001%, if that, right? It's such a minuscule issue. And to give you a bit of perspective on how minuscule this issue is, that Manifestelle is presenting is like, oh, pregnant women, they could be murdered by their husbands. How minuscule this is, based on a longitudinal study from, I think, in Toronto, like a neonatal ward in Toronto, and the findings on how many boys died of circumcision. There is likely 100 boys dying of circumcision in the US every year, right? Because it's an estimate based on the findings from a neonatal ward in Toronto. But you can assume some things like neonatal care is probably not significantly better in the US. It's probably comparable between the US and Canada. So yeah, 100 boys a year based on the prevalence of circumcision are likely dying from it, but they don't keep those stats. So we don't know for sure. But compare those two. This is a tiny, insignificant problem. I'm going to tell that. Insignificant. The only reason why you'd bring it up, except as a rarity, is for a political reason. And that political reason is to further damage the relationship between men and women. All right, getting off my soapbox. But this is like completely dishonest on so many levels.
Yep. I believe it. Okay, so let's get to the next.
Actually, before we continue, I did also work with somebody in the our patron Discord. If you want to join us in our patron Discord, it's badgernation.online. All of the resources that I talk about are available there. Go there to get them. Please don't ask for me to give them to you because it's a lot of having to dole out stuff. And also YouTube doesn't like links. So badgernation.online, and you can discuss these resources with us. You can enjoy them if they're behind paywalls, stuff like that. I probably shouldn't say that, but anyways, the other thing that I wanted to mention is she talks about the increase in domestic violence. Okay, this is another thing that's presented dishonestly. The study, which was a terrible study, by the way, or not a terrible study, its findings were not really strong enough, but of course, they always present them as super
why
strong.
let that get in the way of the message?
Why let that get in the way of a good way of demonizing men, right? So what they found is that of the women who report domestic violence, so of female victims of domestic violence, it was more likely that that domestic violence would occur during their pregnancy. And they had a whole bunch of possible causes for it based on men. But there's one really big possible cause, and I'm going to go to hell for this. No. I mean, I don't think I'll go to hell because it's the truth. And Deborah Powney, who was a researcher, a DV researcher that used to come on our show, she just got busy, but she found that one of the single biggest causal predictor of a woman's experience of violence is being violent. So it's entirely probable that if this result is true, what's happening is that pregnant women are being violent, and that is a predictor of them receiving violence. So, but also the study is sort of, it's weak. Its results are weak. And its results are only specific to the population of abused women, period. So it's not a situation where you get pregnant as a woman and then out of the blue, a fist is coming towards you. No. Mm-hmm. It's getting pregnant in the context of a relationship that's already violent. All right. So can increase the violence. What a surprise. A very stressful change in circumstance has the potential of increasing, making a already violent relationship more violent. But that's a far cry from how this result is presented, especially by people like Manifestelle. All right, Let's keep going.
All right, next Manifestelle clip.
I just wanted to clarify those things. That's all.
You have to have children to do that, to participate in that, but you can also just bare minimum stop hating children, stop hating mothers, and stop participating in this culture that just normalizes the hatred of children. And while it is very important to highlight the negative aspects of motherhood, as Chappell Roan did, and the counter arguments to Chappell Roan's statements by mothers who love their experience of motherhood and saying that Chappell Roan was wrong, I think we can all exist in this gray area that
you're right. She's really trying not to criticize.
It is a radical act of hope. While being
realistic, this is what's so hilarious about this.
I know she doesn't commit to anything because there are mothers that watch her and there are single ladies that watch her. So it's like, how do I walk this walk? This is, by the way, Allison, you said to me, like, these videos are all very long because they waffle a lot. But what they're doing is they're using rhetoric. It's like a ritual spell. It takes like 10 times the normal casting time. So they have to take 40 minutes to say something that takes 4 minutes because they need, by the end, for women to believe that ultimately she's on their side, regardless of their life choices. Because ultimately it's about preserving the sisterhood and pointing the guns at men. Because that's always easy. That's why, like, she can be like, yeah, we got to stop hating on mothers and children because we live in a society that hates children and mothers. But she wants to say it's men. But she can't say it because it is women. So instead, she just says society. That's why when women say society, they mean women. When women say men, they mean men.
Yeah. So, well, you're right. Like, she's got a waffle, which is freaking hilarious because this is what I've seen a lot of in my life. It's women trying to consume each other's autonomy. That they're trying to control and force them to do things. And that's the perception here. I don't think the mother that Hannah Cox was covering was really trying to force anything on anyone. I think that was misperception. Although I agree, there are women who try to force motherhood on other women, and they're not, they're bad. But I'm happy to call them out. Don't do that. Like, I'm happy to call out mothers who are abusive. I'm happy to call out women who use these narratives of male blame. And again, they blame men. Notice they're so uncomfortable. It's like, let's blame men. Men aren't even involved. But God, what would happen if the sisterhood turned against me? Fucking cowards.
Yeah.
I know what happens when the sisterhood turns against me, but I survived. And the woman who turned the sisterhood against me, where the hell is she?
All right. That's it for Manifestelle. So let's get to Bryrony Claire.
Guys.
That was it.
Guys, yeah, that's fine. 10-year anniversary of being kicked out of the Calgary Expo.
Is that today? Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was actually yesterday, but
no,
we didn't do a show
yesterday. I think it was a while ago.
10-year anniversary of a bunch of mean girls deciding to kick me out of and it's bigger than just an expo. It was like a marketplace for independent artists in Western Canada. They got me kicked out. They sort of put a big impediment to that part of my career, but then I decided to just go after their ass. So there you go. But and they're bullshit. But yeah, I got kicked out for simply going up on a panel for women into comics, and I was a woman who was trying to create a comic. And when they mentioned men's rights activists, I said, "Hey, I can speak to that because it's relevant to my interests." And they said, "Go ahead." And I said, "I think that I don't like feminism, or I hate feminism because it excludes men from the picture of being victims." And then the next day, out on my ass. Yeah, the sisterhood actually attempted to destroy me, but I only got stronger. All right.
Yep. All right. So Bryrony Claire first. I think I have it set to the first time code. Let me pause it.
It's genuinely such a blip, and yet it has caused this huge outrage. What is going on? It's caused visceral reactions like this.
Is hell your child coming up to you and saying, "Love you, Mom"? Is hell the sound of little children whispering in the morning in their bed because they know they're not supposed to get up yet, but they're awake? Is that what hell sounds like? I'm so confused. Is hell your child asking for help? That's not hell. Are we okay? So hi, if you've never seen one, here she is, a young mom of 3 children that didn't get any sleep last night. That's happy, life in her eyes and joy in her heart.
Huh? She never dumped on mothers once. In fact, she was saying how much she appreciated.
Yes, she did. And Hannah Cox admitted.
Yeah.
Hannah Cox admitted that these women targeted. Oh wait, no. Oh shit, no, I'm just talking to Richard Beer.
What did he ask you to respond to something specific, but failed to give you a time code? Instead, had us go through the whole thing, only to show up later and say you didn't pick the correct time code.
No,
I didn't provide it to you in advance. Oh, okay.
That's the Dutch. No, that's.
I'm just guessing. Okay.
Richard is usually very copacetic about these things. It's just that he finds the most cancerous of, like, I don't know. He goes under the human collective unconscious. He goes to like the basement of the human mind, the collective human mind, and he goes to like the fridge that has been used by a frat for the last 50 years. And he moves the fridge and he scrapes the brown gunk that he finds under that fridge. And then he hands it over to us and says, "Hey, you can respond to this." And so we do. But not always, like not everything that he does, that he offers. But anyway, but actually he asked me if, he asked me some other stuff and I had to respond, but okay.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Bryrony Claire, she didn't finish this thing about, she didn't shit on women once, talking about Roan or whatever the hell her name is. Fucking, what's the name of this bitch that they're responding to? I don't even remember. Chappell Roan. Yeah. She basically said, again, we're looking at a viral snippet made into a YouTube short that's about 20 seconds long, taken from a 1 hour plus podcast on CallHerDaddy, which is the most popular podcast in the world for women. And it is aimed at women, and it stars and features women. and it is about women's interests because it's popular with women. And so she had a woman on, and that woman said that women with children are miserable. At least the women that she knows are miserable, and it's the worst thing ever. And then also went on to, like, you know, concern troll about being able to marry a lesbian or whatever. But there's a reason why that content is circulating. And some women who are mothers they disagreed with the sentiment, and they wanted to express their disagreement. And people like Bryrony Claire, Hannah Cox, and Manifestelle and Rainbow Shite all had opinions on the women's opinions, which is you're not allowed to have an opinion because you have the wrong opinion. Also, let's preserve the sisterhood somehow. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, because also I think that there may be a deeper existential crisis here that I'll go over, because the sisterhood is about extorting stuff from men because of women's like negative emotions. So, like, to take Manifestelle as an example. Women should not have to provide anything for themselves. They should not have to breathe for themselves, shit for themselves, eat for themselves, or do anything for themselves. And they should always exist in a perfect state of emotional happiness. So there's this idea of the perfect, ideal, woman who just, her entire life is just, and that men should serve women to get to that end where the woman lives in the state of pure, that kind of thing. And but then they have these women who are taking joy from self-sacrifice, which is directly in contradiction with their framing of women needing to have no actual no effort in their life, no sacrifice, no attempt at developing merit in relation. Because if you want to be a mother, a good mother, then you have to become what your kid needs to grow into a healthy, happy adult, right? So you have an external metric, the development of your child. And they deny that. And women should not have external metrics because they are the metric. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right.
Sure.
And so not only are the mothers are presenting, it's not just that they're saying motherhood is fulfilling. They're saying living, sacrificing, seeing yourself in terms of sacrificing for an external standard for another being is satisfying. It is an emotional resource that these women will never have access to. And it also directly conflicts with these women's framing that women, any kind of negative experience is oppression of women, and men must destroy it. So if women take a positive sense of self, they take some kind of internal emotional resource from striving, from living up to an external standard, from losing sleep, from having to change diapers, or anything else that's difficult or unhygienic or disgusting or anything. If they take a sense of self from living up to an external standard, that is in direct contradiction with their framing that any sacrifice by women is wrong and men have to prevent it. See what I'm saying? It's like a clash of identities.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if
All right.
let's
I want to finish Bryrony Claire's chat or her sound clip here.
Huh? She never dumped on mothers once. In fact, she was saying how much she appreciates her friends who are parents because they still show up for her, even though they have to go through so many more extra hurdles to be able to even go to one of her concerts. They have to do so much more work than child-free people do. Okay.
Yes, she dunked on parents. She dunked on the idea of literally. And when I say that this is like a conflict of identities, these women are taking an identity from self-sacrifice to an external standard, which is in contradiction to all of these feminist and communist identities, which is my needs, my sacrifices are illegitimate. Somebody else should be sacrificing for me. So these women are like, I want to sacrifice for something else. The women, Cox, Manifestelle, Bryrony, and Rainbow Shite are all like, no, I have to be sacrificed for. That's my identity. I have to be the one who is provided for. And I don't acknowledge any external standard that I have to live up to. And when you say that motherhood is worth or is miserable, you are denying how these women see themselves, that their misery is in service of a greater thing, like something else that they're serving. So you are attacking them, right? Do you see what I'm saying, Brian?
Yeah.
And you are attacking how they fundamentally see themselves. They see their misery in service of something greater. And you see, well, women being miserable is oppression. It should end. And this is what I use to manipulate men. So shut up about how you find fulfillment in your misery. That's wrong. Your misery in service of something greater than yourself. That's wrong. And you attacked their identities. You've attacked how they see their self-worth, these mothers' self-worth. So yes, this woman has attacked them. Okay.
Yep. All right, next clip. Evie Magazine.
Everything. If you're fortunate enough to not know about Evie Magazine, I did talk about them in my Raw Milk video. They're basically trying to be a right-wing version of Cosmo, and they are scarily growing in popularity. Anyone who thinks mother...
Probably because they're not like 90% ads, and they actually are content. I mean, I don't read Evie Magazine. It's basically just like it's for women, but if you're going to compare it to Cosmo, like women's magazines, like mainstream ones, are just ads. Like the whole thing is just ads. You're paying $7 for ads. And yeah, I guess I would rather just read at least something that has articles, even if I don't like the articles. So, but anyway, let me see. Is that the rest of? No, there's a little bit more here. So let's go.
Is one long, soul-sucking descent into despair, has either never spent meaningful time around actual mothers, or is so immersed in their own dopamine-addicted main character life that the idea of loving someone with your whole heart sounds like torture. Wow, that is quite a reaction. And on their Instagram, they shared this little slide deck too, where Media Research Center said this. Chappell Roan, a Gen Z pop star who dresses in drag, claims, all my friends who have kids are in hell. I don't know anyone who is happy with kids. Fact check. Statistically, the happiest women in America are married and have children. Okay, let me go fact check this unsourced claim, because once again, Brandolini's law comes rocking around the corner like...
What is this?
Because it takes...
Brandolini's law, basically the amount of energy and time needed to produce bullshit.
Yeah, we're about to see an example.
Yeah, and then she's going to show that it takes a lot more work to disprove lies.
Yeah, because she's just about to puke out a lie.
Yeah, let's keep going.
Takes so much longer to debunk misinformation than spread misinformation. So I went on a 45-minute long journey yesterday trying to find the exact source here. And guess what happened when I typed in that little statistic? The first thing that popped up was this. The Institute for...
So if you spend 45 minutes doing it, how come it came up when you just typed in the little statistic?
Family Studies. No red flags there, hey. Where they were referencing the 2022 GS...
Oh, okay. So Family Studies did it, therefore it's debunked, I guess?
Yeah. But it doesn't debunk the actual findings of the General Social Survey. So just keep going. She quotes she quotes Dolan, but keep going. I knew it was going to be Dolan, by the way. I knew it. I knew once I saw her flapping lips over this that it was going to be Dolan. Freaking, like, that man should honestly write a gigantic page and pay Google to correct the record on this. It was such a gigantic boner that he did. And it just keeps going. All
right.
SS, General Social Survey. But they had no links, no sources there either. So then I kept on going to find the GSS information going back to 2022.
Sources. They literally say the General Social Survey. That is the source. You don't have to link to it. This is a person who's never had to list citations at the end of like a research assignment or a thesis. Okay, keep going.
All right.
And this is the part which took up most of my time because, my goodness, they made it super hard, but I eventually found it with this chart, which is referencing the information which they kept on trying to share without linking back to it. My God, why do you think I spend so long linking all of my sources in the description box for people? Their source is the happiness chart as measured over time. As you can see, this goes back to 1974. And this light orange line, that's married people. But very similarly, I could filter for condition of health, and the happiest people are those who are healthy. I could so easily go making this into a headline too. The happiest people in America are also the healthiest. In an ableist society that basically punishes people
good
who never
Lord.
sick. Yeah, no kidding, Sherlock.
Oh my God. Maybe they're healthy because they have a good attitude. Like maybe they take care of themselves because they think life is worth living. What I'm saying, like you're putting never mind, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think she's just basically saying that married people are self-selecting. Yeah, they are, but to stay married, you actually need to have good habits. To be healthy, you probably also need to have good habits. So I don't know where she's going with this. Marriage doesn't make you necessarily happy or healthy. It's just if you are capable of maintaining the state of being married, you're more likely to be able to be happy. All right, let's I don't know how far in she actually gets to the frickin' point.
Yeah,
I actually just went to her studies, but just keep going.
Plus, when you look at the historical data, married people overwhelmingly are the happiest. So this isn't news in any way. So just for funsies, I was playing around with the different filters and saw the citizenship status. Wow, people who aren't citizens are the happiest? Why didn't they make this the front page news? And what do you know it? The people of higher class, the people...
Yeah, because it's not relevant. We're talking about like mothers.
People who are willing to respond to a survey by the U.S. government and not be citizens are probably HB1s.
H1Bs, but yeah.
H1Bs, like, okay, let's, she doesn't get to the point, I don't think, but let's keep going.
All right.
People of higher wealth are also the happiest. It's almost like having that safety net of all of this money allows you to be able to get healthcare, maybe holidays, all the fresh fruit and vegetables you could need, and a retirement plan. Oh my goodness, you could even afford to buy a home.
Okay, lady, listen, let me point the I can't wait. I got a tablet so I can start drawing these concepts out for you. Lady, if you incentivize need and not merit, nobody's going to have anything at the end of the day because nobody's going to build or make anything, right? All they're going to do is say, I have needs, provide for them, and they're not going to actually provide for anyone else's needs. How do they not know this? You've got to incentivize productivity somehow. Otherwise, you're all like, it is not money that makes you wealthy. It's the productivity of your neighbor. All right, let's keep going.
It's like money can indeed buy things that can bring you happiness because you feel secure. Maslow's hierarchy of needs and everything. I mean, I guess in one case with Cheesehead over here because he is deeply, deeply unhappy. But we'll be getting to him soon, don't worry, in a future video, so subscribe for that.
Well, yeah, because she hates Elon Musk now, even though he was literally saving the planet like a couple of years ago, but now he's the bad guy. And that means he's actually secretly miserable, and I'm going to figure it all out with my telepathy, because women, they have telepathy, guys. I don't know if you know that.
Elon can't be miserable. He's too autistic.
Yeah, I know, like, right?
All human emotions are I don't know.
These women, they go on and on about ableism, but they really, really hate guys on the spectrum. Yeah, guys on the spectrum, they hate them. And I think it's because those guys on the spectrum don't appear to give a shit about women's opinions. So that's what pisses them off, is that it doesn't satisfy their narcissistic needs. But anyway, next time code for this person, I'm trying to be nice, 1339. Ultimately,
I wanted to actually get into her. I don't know when she actually talks specifically, but I'm pretty sure she talks about Dolan at some point, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Let me see.
I you know what? Go to the next time code. I will delve into the transcript.
All right.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah,
I have
it.
my these are complete blackout goggles just in case the cancer gets so bad I can't even allow any light into my eyes.
to an individual level. And this is the part which these right-wing outlets don't want to be talked about, because that means that facing the fact that, oh, we should actually be getting taxes from the rich people, because then we could have better social safety nets for people, which would make people overall happier. When it comes to the US in particular, there is a strong clinging to individualism, that it's the mother's failure if she is struggling at all, not the fact that like the government's let her down by reducing or removing or flat out just never even having those social support safety nets.
Wait a second. What are you talking about? If women can't provide for their children, they get welfare. If men can't provide for their children, they go to jail. What the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, but she's not American, so
like that's just like this
opinion
is just
discarded.
Yeah, I know, opinion discarded. Well, then you have to discard my opinion too.
No, I mean, yeah, maybe. But like we have social safety nets. Too many.
What, Canadian?
It's one of the reasons why so many people are trying to come over here, but they're also trying to impose their beliefs about what should be, considered the government's role in people's lives. And it's a very European idea that, that we should have all this free shit. And of course, women, they don't know where money even comes from. Like they're just like, is it in the back? Like I just want my health care. Like I don't care how it happens, right? And they assume that if they don't get it, then there's something unfair that's going on. So they complain. Like this is why, like women of this woman's generation, the Zoomers, I think she's a Zoomer. I might be a little bit too flattering. The women are more radically left than the men are. And like way more. And a lot of it has to do with social media and the way that social media is sort of like, is there are people using it to push women that way because women respond to groupthink and peer pressure and this kind of thing. So they're more likely to go along with that. And plus, it's very nice to hear, the government will take care of you. The government will give you things. The government will tax those evil rich people and all their monies and give it to you, which will obviously be the better place to put it because you're going to know what to do with it. Meanwhile, like, several ding dongs later, you're 400 pounds and like diabetic, but at least you're taken care of, I guess.
I guess the logic here, and I guess it segues also into how this is sort of bifurcated into the right being male and the left being female. Even though women used to vote majority conservative up until like the 2000s almost, I think. But anyway, so we got this bifurcation, and I just occurred to me that I think the communists believe that men should be motivated by others' needs in order to work. But men are, fathers are motivated by the needs of their wives and children. Like, but I guess they want men to be motivated by the needs of abstractions as opposed to people in their own families. Oh, I just thought I'd throw that out as a possible explanation of where they're coming from. All right, let's.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that, like I was saying in the beginning of the video, so Bryrony Claire is like, I guess she's married or something, but she's queer too. So I'm sure that she's not a handful for her man. But like women like this, the communist ones, or at least the more openly, I think Manifestelle will be fine with communism. The more openly communist ones like this one, they're basically like, I want men's provision, but I'm just going to use the state to get it. And I'm going to make men give me stuff so that I get like my comfort needs met without me having to give anything back, without me even needing to have kids to perpetuate the species. And it's like, they don't even realize that where the productivity comes from is people, and that you need to make new people in order to keep producing. And, the communist model only ends up like starving everybody out, and like essentially it turns people into expendable widgets in a giant machine, most of whom are men. But of course they don't think, past like the length of their arm. That's just like, what do I want? And that's it, right? So, and here's the thing that is funny is that they're doing this because men are not going along with this. I have something here that I want to share. Surprise, I have a link too. This is from the New York Post. Gen Z women are choosing older men over guys their own age. And it's not because they're sugar daddies. It's because men their age want traditional women. They're basically like the Gen Z men want women that are going to be essentially, they want women that are going to be more, monogamous, traditional, give them families, etc. And they're doing it to the point where Zoomer women are like, I'm just going to date the older leftists, right? Millennials, Gen Xers, and of course that's what they're chasing, because Zoomer men are becoming, they're basically more traditional. They're more right wing, not like radically so. I know that people like Bryrony Claire would claim that they are not radically so, just sort of like common sense stuff.
Yeah, just more like center right at most, or just center.
Yeah, well, basically they just want the shit that, like, we had a few generations ago. It's not even like that crazy. It's like, oh, I want to have some children and like own some property. And so like you get this young generation of men coming up and they know what they want and they're going for it and they don't care what women want. They're done with that. They're done with listening to them, especially the Zoomer women who've completely they've gone completely off the rails. Like, and they're getting to the point. There was another video I wanted to find, but I couldn't. It was a TikTok video of a Zoomer woman applying makeup and explaining to other women all of the various, what does she call it? Like red flags in like, going down into like regular content that could take them down a right-wing rabbit hole to becoming like radical, like, Christian nationalists and all this other, and fascists and stuff. And it was shit like, caring about your health, like seriously, like eating natural, using like all natural makeup that isn't like made with like, all kinds of crazy chemicals and tested on animals, going to the gym, like stuff that is, healthy, maintaining your, a healthy weight, like that stuff. And she's like, oh, it'll put you down a rabbit hole because you might, start questioning like institutions, like government institutions, like the Department of Education. You might question them if you like homeschool your kids. So she's literally advocating that women stop doing stuff that they enjoy, even including things like crystals and shit, which, obviously is bullshit, but because they might become happy doing that. And they might want to keep doing that. And that's a problem because women have to constantly be in the revolutionary headspace of like fighting against men and the system and patriarchy, etc. This is where women are at right now. This is where Zoomer women are at right now.
Yeah. And again, it's like this bifurcation that you become, if you have any investment in recognizing productivity comes from meritocracy, and meritocracy needs to be incentivized or recognized somehow. So, and then you are on the right, according to them. You're on the extreme right. And yet I would actually challenge these people, these communists, that if they really want to create a society in which the motivation for people to be productive is the needs of others, why do they have, like, why is men's needs, men's issues, why do they act like in the presence of men's issues? Why do they act like vampires in the presence of sunlight? Like you realize we are already basically communism. It's just that it's communism for women, right? Like the only other place we could go to is to create a state that recognizes that men deserve stuff when they have needs. That's the only other place we could go to with our communism, right? And not only is it generally rejected by men because they want to define themselves more in terms of getting stuff based on their actions and their merit rather than their needs. I would say that sometimes that's taken too far. Every race car needs a pit stop occasionally, right? But regardless, if you are going to pursue communism any further than what it is now, then you got to recognize men's needs have to also drive policy. But they never will, because every time you bring up men, all of these communists who are like, oh yes, the state should take care of us from cradle to grave. And you bring up something like, well, what about, boys falling back in education? What about, the fact that infant boys are generally mutilated? What about men and boys facing domestic violence or sexual assault? What about men and boys not graduating as much? And what about men and boys in any context? And they're like, well, they can just pull themselves up by their bootstraps. And it's like, wow, that I just exercised your communism.
If you're going to redistribute wealth, somebody's got to be doing the bootstrapping, and it's going to be men.
And it's going to be
these
men.
things are not actually contradictions. This is the way it works. This is the way it works. The women are the party, and the men are not. They are the enemy. They are the bourgeoisie. So they deserve what's coming to them.
But I just find it amusing that I can exorcise the communism from them in like 5 seconds by just simply bringing up men's issues.
Yeah.
And then suddenly they're basically their caricature of the right. They're like, yeah, they shouldn't get anything. Anything. They need to pull themselves up. They need to pull themselves up by their tooth hairs and some shit. You know that? Like, it's just instantaneously the communism ejects from their head and splatters onto the wall. It's too bad we can't keep them in that state. Then we would neutralize all communism everywhere.
Yeah, but in a communist mindset, somebody has to be the one. That's what I'm saying. Like, this isn't actually a contradiction. This is the way it works. Like, they're basically deciding the men are the ones with the property. They're the ones we're going to essentially genocide so that the women can have the property. We're going to slowly kill them by making them work to provide for women. So yeah, that if you bring, it's just like Chew on Head's video where she was like, I don't understand why like my lefty friends don't like men. And it's just clip after clip after clip of communists saying, fuck men, because they have the power. They are the enemy. So this is not, it's not really a contradiction. Like, this is the way it works. This is the way communism works. Somebody has to be the person whose wealth is being redistributed.
I know it's the way it works.
Yeah. I know.
But they are in this mentality of virtue.
Yes.
Like that everybody's going to be taken care of, right? And then you say, well, men have needs, and suddenly the communism just ejects from their head like a fucking demon. Splatters on the wall behind them. Like, no.
Well, men don't deserve communism.
Men don't deserve, and I know it's because they want the men to underwrite everything. Even though, if you actually look at Stalinist, Soviet, that wasn't the way it worked, ladies and gents. Because what underwritten everything was violence.
It's going to work this time, Allison. It's going to work this time.
Yeah, well, it worked. The Soviet communism worked, not for very long. It just required a tremendous amount of state violence. It required a lot of shootings and gulag,
Yeah. They were getting there. They were very close. Missed it by about,
well, I mean, just
10
wasn't
million.
utopian. It just was there was they had to replace the meritocracy with the boot and the whip. And they did it to both men and women. That's my point.
Yeah, so, I know.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Anyway, next soundbite.
Space. They're really acting like this scene from Night Bitch.
Happiness is a choice.
A valid response to that.
Happiness is a choice.
I'll try.
I think it's important.
Okay, let me just unpack that. Go ahead.
Well, and I was going to say, like, Bryrony Claire, she basically, her whole thing is she takes fiction created by feminists and then presents it as truth, and then says, look at this fictional thing. This is so real. I agree with it because it's made by people like her. So it's like, what's the point? Like, what are we even looking at? That'd be it's just ridiculous, but go ahead.
Okay, so what we're looking at is a man saying that happiness is a choice, and a woman hits him in the face because apparently her happiness is his responsibility. Right. He's basically saying your happiness is your responsibility, lady. And she's like domestic or otherwise violence in response to that. What is she saying? She's saying, no, it's actually your responsibility. And of course, we're supposed to cheer on the woman because men underwrite everything. And also, if I ever spoke to Bryrony in person and mentioned men's needs, the communism would eject from her, like from her mouth, like exorcism vomit, like, and then suddenly she'd be like, bootstraps.
Yep.
Okay.
So let me see. Next one. Yeah, I guess there's a little bit more. Let's keep going.
that people are able to have honest conversations about how hard it is to be a parent in a society which basically lets you just flounder. It's seen that you should be able to, quote, handle it all, because mums especially are often called superwomen for doing it all, without ever recognising that they have to do it all because there is no village to support them. Especially in the US, there's no healthcare support, there's nothing.
The village? Like, seriously. What? Well, who destroyed the village? If you want a village, ladies, you gotta actually behave like a villager, like a woman who puts her community ahead of her own self-interests. Otherwise, there's no village to appeal to, because nobody is you're all just singletons within the same proximity, right? So you're not going to do that because you're incredibly selfish people. But let's go to the next time code.
Yeah. Okay. So
there's got a lot to get through. It could be like 4 hours long.
Actually, this is it for
Bryrony.
That's it for Bryrony. I mean, basically, she uses fiction to make her point about reality, and it's fiction, so it's not reality. And she claims, oh, look at, it's well acted, therefore, right? And there's some movie with Charlize Theron that she also uses. I guess it's called The Letdown. Maybe that's what this is. I don't know. I don't care. We have the Queer Kiwi next, though. So and these two both have the same ideas, so it's very similar. But essentially, Bryrony and Queer Kiwi, Bryrony is Australian, Queer Kiwi is from New Zealand. So they're basically like sisters, and they both have the same conclusions. What we need is more of the state involved, which is basically communism, or at least socialism, until we're ready, become new people, and then we'll have communism. Then women might consider maybe having children for the country, as long as there's a big enough village that's more involved. So when she says a village, she's not talking about like a community that's organically coming together, and like they all share similar values, and they live in the same community, and they all know each other. No. She's talking about a government that is handing out money taken from men, that she doesn't even know what they look like. So, and then giving that to women like her. So anyway, so this is Queer Kiwi, or as I like to call her, Rainbow Shite. And we will go to her first time code at...
And also Void Cat has made a reappearance.
Okay.
It's so upsetting. There are quite a lot of men in the subreddit who said that they didn't want to have a kid because they didn't feel like it was something they could do or were going to be very good at. But then their partners were like very persistent and like threatening to leave them or etc. And saying that, having a kid would be amazing, and effectively eventually talking them into it.
It's Reddit.
Yeah. But also I wanted to point this out. I thought this was an interesting time code. It's a bit different. Like, I decided to go with a little bit
the male
more
perspective is
there.
Yeah,
the male perspective. Like, suddenly we have a moment, a blip in the matrix, and we get the male perspective. We see it through the rip in the time space continuum. The fem space continuum. And we just get a moment of how much pressure there is on men to have the child that their women want, right? And I just thought that was interesting. But of course, it's never addressed again. Like, she doesn't go anywhere with it.
Yeah. No, she just sort of like, I think she's using it to further like say, oh, look, even the men are unsure, right? But I mean, again, men on Reddit are not like the men in the New York Post article that are, the reason why they're freaking out about this, the New York Post article, by the way, is because they're saying that Gen Z women are forced to date older men because Gen Z men, they're into the manosphere content. And so that makes them scary to women. They're obviously misogynistic or whatever. I think it's because those women have been propagandized to fear those men for wanting to essentially find a place where they can get a positive male identity that is not based solely on how they serve women and how they are essentially to be used as tools. And so they're like, well, maybe I want to build my own thing. Maybe I want to own my own business. Maybe I want to do something, productive. Like the red pill isn't really about, I think it's more about like men sort of self-actualizing and doing that without women's like, I don't know, responding to women, I guess, and acting on its own, but they don't like that because that doesn't center women anymore.
You need squishing?
So.
You need squishing? Do you want to squish? You want to squish? No, you want this.
All right. So what's the other? You want to respond to this, or should I go on to the next time code?
Well, can we give like a summary of
Bryrony
Bryrony.
Rainbow Shite.
I'm
Okay,
sort of,
hold on.
I get it if you're like really tired because this is.
I am. I'm at Lindsay's cooking, and like I said, we just did a fast, and I'm like super hungry.
Yeah. Could you just a sec? Could you check your phone? Because there might be
something.
Yeah, it might be. Yeah, there's a the verification.
Oh,
thing.
I gotta go to my phone. Hold on.
Yeah, just I'll just imagine we have Brian checking his phone music that we would put right here, and it would be very melodious.
You picked a hell of a time to do that. Yeah, I do have something here.
Okay.
My phone was plugged in back there. I'm waiting for it to open up.
Right.
Okay, so show notes. Summary No,
it's just I got to maybe I need
the prompt expired. You gotta do it again.
Okay, try again.
All right, hold on.
All right, we'll do this one. Okay, there we go.
I don't have it yet, but
all right. Well, sorry guys.
Hold on, just wait. The
longer these shows go on, the more the backstage starts to become visible. Okay.
All right. Yes, it's me. Got it. All right. Summary. In this conversation, the host explores a subreddit, Are Regretful Parents. So it's literally a subreddit that is about parents who have regrets.
Mm-hmm.
You can't use that as evidence of anything. You're literally going to the place where it's happening and saying, this is happening everywhere because it's happening here in this very specific subreddit that is about this. So discussing the challenges and realities of parenthood, the dialogue emphasizes the importance of open conversations about the difficulties of raising children, the societal pressures to have kids, and the impact of social media on perceptions of motherhood. The host reflects on the coercion some individuals face in their parenting decisions and the long-term implications of these choices. The conversation also touches on the capitalist motivations behind promoting family structures and the emotional complexities of parenting, including regret and compassion. By the way, another thing is that both Bryrony Claire and Rainbow Shite here both say that, people wanting kids is capitalism.
Okay.
Even though you need people no matter what system you want to live under. But yeah, that's a capitalist thing, having kids. You guys know that? Did you know that having kids is just like being an evil, dirty bourgeois capitalist? But the other thing that I think is really funny about this too is that the two commie women, I think they're political lesbians. I know that they're both queer, whatever the hell that means, and identity without an essence ultimately. And I think Bryrony Claire might be married. I think she claims to have a husband. This woman is not, but Rainbow Shite, that is. But what's interesting about them, as well as the original person they're responding to, is that they were expressing concerns about being able to marry like same-sex partners. They wouldn't call it that, I'm sure, because that implies a binary, and we can't have that. And it's weird because on the one hand, like, what is the purpose of marriage? Like, let's just look at it from a historical perspective. Like, why did people get married originally? Why did men and women get married? They got married to start families. That was the purpose of it. So that you, like, a man's son will have his name and then give that name to the next and the next and the next. Like, women who don't take their husband's name when they get married, they just keep their father's name because their father, or if they don't, if that wasn't the case, then they have their grandfather's name, whatever, right? On their mother's side. So they're literally trying to undo what marriage was for most of our history in terms of it essentially serving the purpose of forming a union so that you can have children, but they want the children having part of it to stop, but they also want to be able to marry same-sex people and not have any children, or at least not have their own children. So it's like, I don't know, it's just weird. It's like, what is the meaning of marriage if you've completely inverted all of it?
Mm.
I'm just saying, like, You know what I mean? Like, you want marriage to exist, but you want to exist for you, but you don't really want it to exist for people who want to start families, because you don't think anybody should have families. You just don't want to say that because you don't want to judge the women who do want that, because you're trying to preserve the sisterhood. But if it just so happens that our population collapses, which it is doing right now, that's okay, because it's just women making choices. Motherhood's hard.
I wish.
Also, you know what?
Yeah, I actually, it's amazing that these commies make me long for Soviet Russia. I wish they lived in Soviet Russia.
Yeah.
Problem solves itself.
Because people say that under communism there's no feminism, but they use feminism to start communism. So, like, Mao Zedong used to say, what's the thing he was known for saying? Women hold up half the sky. It was one of the things that he used he used women in his own country to start the ball rolling on what is now communist China. So it may not be feminist now, because feminism already served its purpose back then in the 1950s or whenever it happened, 60s. So anyway,
yeah.
But yeah, that's basically the thesis on.
So there's just not much difference between Queer Kiwi and Bryrony, I think, is the ultimate conclusion here.
Mm-hmm.
They both do a lot of communism, and I find myself just sort of glazing over when that starts.
Yeah.
It's funny because you're right, Brian. It's like we want to have communism, everything from his abilities to her needs. That's what we want. And it's also going to be underwritten by men. But they don't want to have to actually have a relationship with men or recognize that it's being underwritten by men at all. This is just swaddled delusion. Like, all of it. This is the results of excessive swaddling.
Mm-hmm.
Brain swaddling. And again, all of them are trying to contend. It's so funny because these women, these mothers who are, they're dealing with, if they're good mothers, they're dealing with a certain amount of self-sacrifice and self-deprivation and, sleep deprivation, having to do gross tasks, having to put someone else's needs ahead of your own, that kind of thing. They're all dealing with that. And they're just like a huge rock thrown into the puddle of these women because they're women taking a positive identity, getting emotional resources from self-sacrifice. And that is completely antithetical to all of these women's sense of self.
Yeah.
Because any kind of discomfort that women experience, a man is to blame and a man needs to fix. So the idea that women could endure discomfort in order to gain self-actualization is just like, what is this moon speak? Oh man.
Oh, the JoJo's barking. He's hungry. It's time for him to eat.
Oh right. Yeah. Okay. Holy crap. This is more than like 3 hours work. I also did a bunch of research. I actually watched as much of these communists as I possibly could. I mean, the thing with communism, like, I can actually feel something when I listen to feminists. It's mostly rage, annoyance, and pity, but I feel something. Communists are just like it's just I can't even focus on it. It's so boring. All right.
Yeah, I mean,
as a woman, my emotions are what are important here.
Rainbow Shite doesn't make arguments. She just says ew, yikes, and sweaty all the time. So there's not much. There's not a lot of substance there. Yeah. Who hurt you, sweaty? Ew, yikes. Do better. Like just those things. Hope this helps. Like, that's all of her content. At least Bryrony Claire tries to bring like studies, but she's very dishonest in how she presents them. Manifestelle is basically a reptile, and Hannah Cox is a chameleon. So there's like a couple of cold-blooded bitches in there, and a robot that prints out bad studies, and a reaction machine. That's basically what we just responded to. a surface level reaction machine.
Well,
let's
put it. We gotta bring this stuff in and administer at least some kind of anecdote. I know it's a small scale, but you gotta do something, right? At least somewhere the truth is being, like, at least somewhere. Maybe I shouldn't use the word truth. Somewhere we're actually talking about the studies, and what they actually say, and and bringing in the idea that all of this is predicated on just completely ignoring men. Like I said, you bring in men's issues, like, you understand that Hannah Cox is just, you talk about men's issues and she's just gonna blink in confusion, like, what?
Yeah, what? But men have all the power. I don't understand.
And well, I mean, she uses that to excuse not having to care about it. That's what this all is. It's just these excuses for eternal solipsism. And then they had a huge rock thrown in their solipsistic pool, which is these women that are taking a positive sense of self and self-regard from sacrificing for something greater than themselves. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Well, now they have to contend, and they have to do all kinds of mental gymnastics, like pretend that individual Roan didn't throw the first stone. No, they the mothers just rose up in anger for no reason. Absolutely no reason. It was just like, and then the mother nation attacked.
Yeah.
For no apparent reason. All right, so I'm going to do my thank yous. I don't have a lot of different people to thank, but I do have a few. Let's see if there's any, or do we have any super chats or super chows?
No, I've looked and I don't see anything.
Like, nobody, it must be like, it's probably because it's like Easter, right?
Yeah, sure.
Everybody's in a food coma. But you guys, if you want to get in a super chat, do it now. Or super chow, feedthebadger.com/justthetip. Although, there's a bit of delay, but anyway. Feedthebadger.com/justthetip. You can do it anytime after the show is over. If you have anything burning in your mind that you want to point out, anything you think we didn't cover. Do you feel like we misrepresented any of these young ladies, or what? I don't know how young.
Do you want to simp for them or cape for them? Please go in the comments.
No, you don't have to. You send us a super chow. Feedthebadger.com/justthetip. You can cape for them and support our show at the same time. And if you would like to support the show, it's at feedthebadger.com/support. I have a couple thank yous. Thank you to Anonymous for $2,000. Thank you.
Ooh, thank you. Come again.
So do they deserve something better than that?
Yeah, like maybe give them a few.
Give me a thank you. Give me a thank you for feminists for getting your right to vote. Otherwise, stop voting and go make me a ham sandwich.
Thank you.
And then also thank you to Richard Pierre for 2,100. I'm not exactly sure about. Yeah, I know. Like, whoa.
Am I saying that I'm better than you? I guess I'm going a little further than you are. Yeah, I'm fucking better than you. Okay, much better than you. You are garbage.
And again, like, we appreciate everybody who supports us, everybody who listens and shares our content, because I know that can be difficult too. I've heard that some people feel like it's difficult. It's hard to come out of the closet about caring about men, or even advocating for your own issues as a man. But anyway, or even questioning the mainstream narrative. But very much appreciated if you share this content. If you want to join our community, badgernation.online, and help us out with, or just talk to us about our resources, find our resources, look at them, comment upon them, badgernation.online, participate in the community, that kind of thing. And yeah, like, again, thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting. And if you want to, give us $5, $10, every bit is really helpful. Feedthebadger.com/support. Anyway, I'm just wittering now, so I'm going to hand it back to Brian.
Women were still viewed as chattel.
All right. Well, if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today. And please, please, please share this video, because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of Maintaining Frame, and we will talk to you guys in the next.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.